Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's a lovely Thursday evening, mashallah, over here where I am. I hope that you guys are all well. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the platform. Welcome back to the channel. It's your sister Naima B. Robert here, back at it again with another live stream. Alhamdulillah. We had a great time yesterday, mashallah. Looking forward to another great time today, bi'idhnillah. We've got a great show planned for you guys, inshallah. Please hit the like button on your way in. And I want to see those comments, guys. Brother Nasser is in the green room, okay? He's standing by, but I cannot let him in until I see some activity in the chat. So we're waiting for those salams. We're waiting for the locations dropped in the chat. And then I will be able to allow my co-host in and we'll be able to get started with the show. Make sure you hit the like button on the way in. Thank you, Mr. Manan. We appreciate you. jazakAllahu khairan. Salam. Okay, we're getting activated. This is good. Alhamdulillah. So we can do this now, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. How are you?
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Brother, how are you?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. No complaints. Life is good. Walking, talking, breathing.
Alhamdulillah, always a good thing, mashallah. Okay, so before we get started, we need to do a check. Did you manage to fulfill the requests of the viewers who asked for green for today's theme?
You know, so the interesting thing when you said do a check, I'm checking my mic and I'm thinking, okay. I think I hit it. But in the comments, they can let us know if I hit the green quota for today, inshallah. I hope that I did. And if not, then, we can come back next week, inshallah, Allah permits, and make sure we get the color right then, inshallah.
Bi'idhnillah, bi'idhnillah. Right, guys, so we have a packed show for you today, mashallah. Super, super excited about what we've got planned. Barakallahu feek, wherever you're listening, wherever you're tuning in from, may Allah bless you. If you're going somewhere, may He bless your destination. If you're coming from somewhere, may Allah bless where you're coming from. And today we have a show in several segments. So please, first off, just forgive me if we have any kind of tech issues whatsoever, okay? Because we're trying to level up in terms of the production quality, but that means there's a lot of moving parts, okay? So just bear with me if we have any any nonsense along the way. We've got Sheikh Nisa from Egypt. We've got Mr. Mana from Birmingham in the UK. Mashallah, keep dropping those locations, guys, and give your salam as you come into the chat, inshallah. Right, so Brother Nasser, could you just give us a little bit of a recap for those who were not on the live yesterday? How do you feel that the conversation went yesterday?
I think it went well. I think we covered. I think you and the various guests you had on did an excellent point in terms of addressing the variety of needs that are there, right? That then produce the multitude of options that we have in terms of what marriage looks like. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important because I think we need to make sure that we aren't creating stigmatism around the choices, the halal choices that adults are making, and that they think is best for their situation, right? So I think it was a great live yesterday. I think it contributed to furthering that perspective, which is a perspective that I firmly believe we have to allow adults to make adult decisions. And it may not look like what we think is best for ourselves or what we think the tradition is.
Yeah, 100%. Guys, it was a great stream. Alhamdulillah, it was so nice to have so many different people on with different perspectives, but it was a thoughtful dialogue, and I always appreciate a thoughtful dialogue, even though people may have not agreed with each other on all points. Disagreements were expressed respectfully. People came on, they shared really honestly, mashallah. So guys, if you did not catch the live stream from yesterday, it was a live show. Please just hop on over there after this, inshallah, and just catch up on it, because it really had some amazing gems in there, mashallah. Anyway, we've got work to do. So, guys, on Candid Conversations, we are here to have conversations, to teach, to discuss, to share on mastering the human side of Muslim marriage. So, we discuss areas around emotional intelligence, around communication, around expectations, the psychology of things, the emotional side of things, the mental side of things, and the physical side of things, to enable us to, inshallah, master this area so that we can have the sakina that we're all looking for in this area of our lives, inshallah. But before we jump into today's show, there is a little video clip that I want to share with you guys. And it is it's a quote from Esther Perel's TED Talk. You guys have heard me talking about Esther Perel before. I've mentioned her in several different talks. And I just want to share this as an introduction to the idea that we've expressed many times on this channel, which is that our expectations of marriage have changed. And it's not just in the Muslim community that this has happened. It is actually a worldwide thing. It is part of the culture that we live in, right? So with your permission, guys, I'd like to share this video with you. Of course, always drop in the comments your thoughts. We love to see the chat activated. We love to see you guys reflecting on what we're talking about. And one of the things that I love about this channel and you guys is that the chat is actually about the topic, right? The chat is actually about what's happening on the screen. And I love that, because it shows me that you guys are engaged, that you're listening, that you're thinking, and that you're actively, basically you're part of the conversation. And I absolutely love that. So let me try and tee this up, inshallah. You know how we do, right? So, bismillah.
You got it.
This, okay. Bismillah. Right. Okay. Some of you may be familiar with it already. Some of you may not, but let's see if we can catch her at the right part. Yeah.
For security, for predictability, for safety, for dependability, for reliability, for permanence, all these anchoring, grounding experiences of our lives that we call home. But we also have an equally strong need, men and women, for adventure, for novelty, for mystery, for risk, for danger, for the unknown, for the unexpected, surprise, you get the gist, for journey, for travel. So reconciling our need for security and our need for adventure into one relationship, or what we today like to call a passionate marriage, used to be a contradiction in terms. Marriage was an economic institution in which you were given a partnership for life in terms of children and social status and succession and companionship. But now we want our partner to still give us all these things. But in addition, I want you to be my best friend and my trusted confidant and my passionate lover to boot, and we live twice as long. So we come to one person and we basically are asking them to give us what once an entire village used to provide. Give me belonging, give me identity, give me continuity, but give me transcendence and mystery and awe all in one. Give me comfort, give me edge, give me novelty, give me familiarity, give me predictability, give me surprise. And we think it's a given, and toys and lingerie are going to save us with that.
So I just wanted to share that. Thank you, Esther. Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. I wanted to share that because I found it to be a really interesting space that we find ourselves in culturally, which is, and I don't know whether that clip actually expresses it as well as I wanted it to, but it's this idea that our concept of what is normal in a marriage has shifted dramatically in a way that is unprecedented in human history. So as she mentioned, throughout human history, marriage was an institution. It was based on family ties, on duty, on responsibility, on legacy. Your husband was your husband. Your wife was your wife. There were certain roles that they played and certain roles you did not expect them to play. A couple of generations ago, husbands and wives did not see did not see each other as best friends. They didn't expect to be best friends. They may not have expected to have that passionate, romantic relationship that, of course, today we see as normal and healthy and the right of every human, right? But Brother Nasser, I mean, when you saw this earlier, I don't think you were very impressed by what Esther had to say. So what are your thoughts on what she said and sort of this whole shift that we've gone through?
So yeah, I think she's right, but I just think it was wordy. You know, I've heard you articulate this and others articulate it quite well in a manner that I think is very receptive and people get. And listening to it again, it highlights, I think, points that, you know, you've made and others have made. But what does stand out more is, in listening, you know, to your perspective on it, is something that I've seen with my client base as well, is there is that demand, right? So it's one thing to want and desire something and prefer it. I wish that my husband could be my best friend. It's another thing to demand it, right? And when it gets rigid and it becomes that demand, I think that's where you get into that realm of potentially self-sabotaging the relationship and also thinking I can get better, right?
Well, this is the thing, is that the whole idea of the correct or the perfect relationship, right? Not correct, the perfect relationship.
Yeah, the ideal.
This ideal, right? This ideal relationship that now in our heads is so real because we've been feeding the idea of the ideal since we were so high, right? So we have a very developed idea of what that ideal looks like. And unfortunately, as I've said before, that ideal is not rooted in reality at all. It's rooted literally in fantasy. It's rooted in imagination, in poetry, in song, in play, in film, right? It's literally the product of people's imaginations. And
go ahead.
No, just and here we are holding it as a standard, as if it actually exists. This is a real thing. This is a real thing. It's how it should be. And if things were right, if this was my person, that's how they would be. It's just,
So 2 points, and I think it also connects to the discussion from yesterday. So 2 points. One, I just think from a, you know, coaching perspective, I would encourage people to look at the language, and it may seem like a moot point, but it's really important. So your wants, your desires, your preferences, there's nothing wrong with this. Nothing wrong. The problem is when you escalate those to the demands, right? And that's the clear distinction that you want to make. Are you demanding that your spouse be a certain way, or it's something that you prefer, you want, right? It's a desire. This is nothing wrong with it. And you can aspire to get that in your marriage. But the problem again comes when you escalate it to a demand, when you get rigid about it. And that's what I think people should look at when in themselves. So when your spouse is not giving you what you want, then look at how you feel and what you do. If it's unproductive, unhelpful to yourself and the relationship, then you probably have a demand that you're just wording as a preference. So I wish my husband would do A, B, and C. I wish my husband could be my best friend. But if you are responding in if the emotion that comes up is anger, and you're
that he's not that,
then yeah, it's really not a want or a wish or a desire. It's a demand that he must be this way. He must be my best friend, right? And so that's an important thing. So the language is important. And I think, again, I think this comes back to the conversation yesterday that you had, and I think we've had a number of times, is you have to allow adults to want what they want, right? As long as it's in the realm of what's permissible. If they want what they want, allow them to construct a deal that works for them, especially when we're talking about mature adults, people that have been through a marriage once or twice. Because what I may believe or someone else may believe is the ideal is not maybe what they want or desire. And that, I think, needs to be respected. Because then I think I would, in a general sense, our community can be very rigid with the lives of other Muslims, right? They have to articulate their Islam and practice their Islam and practice marriage in a way that fits into their box, right? And if not, then it's problematic.
Yeah.
Hence, the sister, and I apologize. I'll allow you to pronounce her name. I just call her, Shorty from Belgium. Shorty from Belgium was saying that one of the things is to travel. So what happens when you have a sister that's in her late 30s, early 40s, been through 2 marriages, comfortable in her career, she has her kids are older, maybe that's something that she's looking for. Maybe she didn't have that in her first 2 marriages. Maybe she's at a point in her life where that's something that's important for her, to have companionship and to be able to travel. Maybe the arrangement, the marriage, the deal she constructs with someone has that in it, i.e., maybe it's a polygamous marriage. And maybe one of the roles that she plays is, yes, they see each other during the week, but she's someone that travels with him when he goes on trips.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Right?
I think, this came up in another live stream. I feel like we've had this conversation. Okay, so guys, feel free to drop your comments in the chat, inshallah, because we had some and busy playing games 1 2 3. My dad always says sometimes it's better to love the person you marry than marry the person you love. Oof, that's a tough one, mashallah. But definitely,
my dad always says, sometimes it's better to love the person you marry.
You definitely want to love the person you marry. You definitely want to make sure that you do that. Yeah. So, all right. So we've got a whole program today, right? So we're going to jump in, inshallah, with today's show. And typically when we have this show, guys, we want to give you guys tangible benefit, real teaching. So we wanted to have a conversation around the concept of being agreeable, right? You know that for the past however long, the issue of submission and women being submissive specifically has been coming up again and again, right? And I know full well that word can be a trigger for some sisters. I get it. Okay, I've been there. I was there, right? Certainly, it was not a word that I ever used, even if I behaved in that way. It wasn't a word that I used because I did not feel comfortable with it at all. So, guys, if you feel some kind of way with people talking about submission or being submissive, just put submissive in the chat, okay? just to allow yourself to get through the discomfort, okay? Push through out of your comfort zone into your stretch zone. Just put submissive in the chat. It's okay. This is a no judgment zone. So,
quick question for you. Why was it uncomfortable for you?
Oh, this is like one of the biggest sort of feminist buzzwords, that kind of comes in around maybe from the back door. So the idea of submitting to a man, if you have any feminist programming whatsoever, you're going to get triggered, because why should you submit to a man? Like, why? That's the idea. Like, why should I? I'm a sentient being. I am, a sane adult. I have my own mind. I have my own opinions. I have my own value. Why would I submit to a man? Right? He's just a man like me. He's just a human being. So there's all of that comes up, and it's something that you don't find people using that language, even people of knowledge, especially in the West, because they know that. Because they know that it is a trigger for sisters, right? Submit to your husband. You're not going to find people on the minbar saying, sisters, submit to your husbands. I don't think so. I could be wrong, guys.
No, and that's part of the reason why we have this crisis we have now, is they pandered to sisters.
Yeah, exactly. So that word, guys, if there's anyone who's feeling some kind of way, it's okay. It's all right. Just put submissive in the chat. It's fine. All right. We're going to push through it, because language is important, but the meaning of the words is more important, right? So sometimes what we need to do, if we understand that submitting to our husbands is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked of us, right? and we have an issue with that, it's on us to work through it. So if you want to submit, if you want to substitute the word submit or being submissive with agreeable, for example, that could be a workaround. Brother Nasser, do you accept that as a workaround?
I do. I do. I do as long as there's flexibility, right? And what that looks like, and there's understanding in what that looks like for both people, right? I think
explain what do you mean.
So I think when it comes to submitting, there needs to be clarity about what that looks like in a marriage. Okay. Right. Both people need to have a conversation. So I'm not too caught up on what the wording is, although I prefer the wording of submitting. That way it does have some level of clarity to it. But I think there needs to be that conversation beforehand. And what I find in my work is, oddly enough, people don't like discussing this element, right? Even brothers, right? They don't like to touch this part of the conversation. And I think it's critical. It's critical to discuss. Right.
Do you, I just want to just take a temperature check just for now for the chat, guys. For the brothers, do you yourself or do you know of in your friendship groups or in your masjid or in your organization, have you seen evidence of what Brother Nasser is saying, that brothers do not want to have that conversation, or that that's like a touchy subject? What do you guys say? Put it in the chat. And sisters as well, if you know that amongst your friends, amongst your family, in your circle, the idea of submitting is just like a dirty word. It's like it's a touchy subject. Just let us know in the chat. Sorry, brother, carry on.
So just one subtle pushback to the comment that's up, right, from Ahmed, the previous one. If you're the man, you don't need to ask for submission. You'll get it without asking. I know that's a common phrase that's out there, a common mantra. In theory, I get it, but I think the other thing is not every woman is raised to be submissive.
Sorry, did you say not every woman?
It's early. I'm trying not to be spicy right now.
Did you say not every woman is raised to be submissive? Okay.
Right.
I'll leave that there.
Yeah. And so she may have the inclination to be agreeable, to be submissive, but does not know how to be submissive and agreeable in a manner that you're looking for. Again, this is why I think that conversation needs to happen before. And so it may not be that she's trying to be confrontational. It may not mean that she's not trying to be submissive. It's just that she was not raised in a manner that submission looks the way you want it to look.
Which could, and which could be this subjectivity of people's cultures and their own family cultures as well, right? So, for example, if you grew up in an environment where your father's word was law and he said it and everybody just listened without any conversation, maybe that's your idea of what submission looks like. Maybe she grew up in a family where there was a lot of discussion, there was a lot of kind of back and forth, not in a bad way, but just they had a much more free environment to express opinions, and then the father's word was the last word. But and then people fell in line after that. So in that situation, it's probably a good idea to talk about what that would look like and what you leading and her following actually looks like, right? But there's an interesting quote here. Where is it? What do you think of this? 100%. Too many brothers play the nice guy route and don't express their true opinions. What do you reckon?
So, route, is that like the UK version of route?
It is the correct version of route. Yes.
Okay. Just curious. So
listen, guys. Listen. Wait a second. We've got more viewers from the UK on this channel. You guys roast him in the comments. Feel 100% free. Okay. These American imperialists already. Go ahead.
So no, I think this comment is spot on, and I think for sisters and brothers, see, this is one of the reasons why I really encourage conversation and dialogue and kind of difficult questions before marriage, because you get to get a temperature of how the brother or how the sister handles discomfort. right? Body language, tone, right? I think that's so important. And so I think there's something to be said, if a brother is trying to be the nice guy and not having those difficult conversations. And I think there's something to be said if a brother does have this conversation with a sister about submission and she responds in an aggressive or harsh or curt manner.
I think definitely people want to seal the deal and don't want to mess things up. I mean,
And
let me know.
that's one of the problematic symptoms of desperation.
Of course.
Right? Like there shouldn't be a hesitancy to seal the deal. Right? Right? We don't act out of desperation, especially as men. I don't think that's a space to move from. But there was another comment that was up here that I wanted to mention that I think.
Was it this one?
I think it was another one from K-12. If the father hasn't done the job in the early stages, do you see that one? Yeah. If the father hasn't done the job in the early stages, then it's a difficult thing for a husband to take over. Why fathers are so important. One clog missing and all can fail. Yeah. I think that's really important. I think that's one of the things brothers should definitely look for. What is the relationship like between her and the father? And what role does he play? Does he if the father plays a very passive role and the mother is domineering in the relationship, then you have some heavy lifting to do.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Unless she probably has older siblings and she's learned from them the problems that comes with a husband that's not leading. I've seen that so often where the mother is the domineering figure and running things.
Yeah, for sure. And so many of you are familiar with the 5 Love Languages book, which I put up on a post to say, should we read it? And it didn't get as many votes as some of the other books. And actually somebody commented and said, enough with the 5 languages already, the 5 love languages. But he wrote another book called Things I Wish I Knew Before We Married, which is very, very good, mashallah. And one of the things he mentions is looking at the parents, looking at the dynamic between the mother and the father, so you can get a picture of what your wife or your husband is likely to turn out as. So just exactly, he gave that example, right? The henpecked husband, that's the girl's model, right? She has a model of a mother who nags and a father who basically acquiesces and is henpecked, right? Similarly, if he grew up with that example, then that's his blueprint, basically, right? So some of the things you may want to look at, guys, when you're kind of in the stages of still looking for someone, is asking those questions about and potentially even observing the relationship between the mother and the father as much as you can, because likely your spouse to be, the man or the woman, has that blueprint and is going to repeat those patterns, basically, right? Unless, of course, they have become self-aware and they've done some work and they themselves say, my parents are like this, but for my household, this is what I want.
Yeah. And that can happen. I don't want brothers to think that can't happen. It can happen because oftentimes what I've seen with sisters I've worked with is there's a contentious relationship with the mother. And that has been the opening that then leads them to reflect on the role their mother has played in their life, but particularly in the family dynamic, right? And what's been problematic about that, i.e. being controlling, being aggressive, right? In tone and diction as well. So it's not an automatic, cancel if she has a father that's very passive and mother is domineering. It's just, what does that look like? And is she aware of that?
Yeah, definitely. It's a conversation that needs to be had, subhanAllah. And I think, like in all things, guys, every one of us speaks from our own experience, right? So if somebody has had an experience where they married, they submitted to a husband who was not He didn't have her best interests at heart. Let me put it that way. Okay. He didn't have her best interests at heart or the relationship's best interests at heart, and somehow he abused his authority. Obviously, that sister is not going to be able to speak about submission in a way that is, glowing and yes, everyone should do it, because she did it and it didn't work out, right? And it's the same with everyone. If you married a divorcee, for example, and you became a stepfather, and it was an amazing experience, and even though whatever, you made a go of it and it worked, when other people come and ask you about marrying a divorcee, you're like, hey, you know what? There's so much reward in it. There's barakah, there's this, there's that, just make sure that you find that. You're going to be able to speak about that situation in a way that someone who did the same thing, married a divorcee, was a stepfather, but was completely ruined by the experience, he's going to have something completely different to say, right? So we need to bear that in mind as well. The deen itself, the ideal scenario, is objective, right? It's an objective truth. Like this is the ideal scenario. Like we said yesterday, there's the ideal scenario. So I guess, okay, so this is I think this is important, right? Because it seems to me that sisters from certain backgrounds or certain family backgrounds do have this trauma, right? Of having observed an unhealthy relationship. And let's just limit it to the ones who saw a relationship where their father had all this power and authority and their mother was completely subjugated, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we work through that? Because it's all very well, guys, everyone in the chat and everybody watching, it's all very well us saying, yes, but this is how it should be, and this is how the husband's meant to be, this is how the woman's meant to be, blah, blah. But if you yourself have lived a different reality, how can you unlearn that in order to be able to go into your own situation without that baggage? That's a question for you.
Yeah, I you know what I'm going to say. That's why I always emphasize learning a modality. You have to learn a model to understand your thinking and regulate your emotions, the thinking, feeling, connection, right? Because when you grow up in that type of situation, you will more than likely develop intense, unhealthy, negative emotions, right? So, for example, you'll more than likely develop anxiety or anger, right? These type of issues. And so when you experience that, those emotions are red flags for you to think about your thinking. And so when you think about your thinking and you catch with the understanding of a model, it'll teach you how to catch those unhelpful thoughts that produce the anxiety, right? That produce the anger, right? So it's important to learn a model so that way you can reprogram yourself from what you've learned throughout your childhood and teenage years and early adult years. So you have to learn a model. That's my perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I want to just go into this quickly here because
Can
brother
we
asked.
just go back to that the last one? I can't recover.
Yeah. Okay.
It was I can't recover from
trauma.
From
Yeah.
trauma I've had from divorce and have too many trust issues. Yeah, so I mean, in this type of situation, since I don't know your particular situation, but I would definitely, again, I would learn a modality that will help you with that thinking, feeling connection. Because trauma is a lot about the meanings we develop about experiences that are quote unquote traumatic. And those meanings are what we carry into the next situation or the next moment. Those meanings may not be constructive to our goals, values, and purpose. So then we have to learn a modality to be able to understand and unpack those meanings and then create those healthy alternative meanings about what did happen, which may be wrong, granted, but the meaning that you develop from what happened, which was not correct, which was unhealthy, which was wrong, unfortunate, doesn't need to be carried with you, right? That's not, and this, please, for you and anyone watching, don't take this the wrong way. That's why, it's the past is the past, right? It literally is the past. but what's present is the meanings we develop from the past. That's what we take with ourselves moving from the past incident. Whatever those past incidents were, they're gone. But what you carry with yourself every day, the luggage you carry with yourself every day, is the meanings you develop. And those meanings are what can be self-sabotaging to you and self-sabotaging to future relationships.
Inshallah, sis. Yeah, I mean, definitely language is so important. So even to allow yourself to say, I can't recover, what you're doing, you're making a rule, right? You're telling yourself, I cannot recover from this trauma, right? And that's not helpful, because if you're telling yourself you can't recover, the likelihood is that you will not. But if you decide that you will recover, inshallah, you are going to come out of this, the other end, stronger, okay, stronger, more grounded, full of iman, you know, whatever the case may be. And then you take steps towards that, inshallah, Allah will bless you with that healing. But if you stay in this space of, I can't recover from the trauma, I have too many trust issues, and that's the story you're telling yourself, that's where you're going to stay. And I wouldn't want that for you, and I wouldn't want that for anybody else, because to stay in the suffering is a choice. We choose to sit in the suffering. We don't choose the suffering. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us with that. But to sit in it and to stay in it, that is a choice. But we only recognize that it's a choice when we, you know, maybe hear something for the first time, or we are exposed to something new, and you realize, I'm choosing this. Because most of the time we think that, of course, this is the space that I'm in because this is what happened. Again, it's that thinking, feeling connection that we've spoken about, right? So may Allah give you total shifa and allow you to move past this. And
I mean, one other thing with that, the sitting in it, a part of that is sitting in the narrative that you create, right? And one of the ways to unwork that is to unwork the narrative that you created, right? To alter that narrative, because the narrative is what you're going to sit in for 24 hours of the day. You know, as long as you're, you know, awake and can think, those thoughts, those floods of beliefs and thoughts that come, that's what you're going to be sitting in. And so that's the narrative. Those are the meanings you have to put in the work to reconstruct to a healthy alternative narrative. Which
100%.
And when that's that, sis, the other thing is, and I hope you get this from tonight's live, and if not, there's other lives that we've discussed. Please understand that your next marriage, inshallah, that you are married again, does not have to fit into anyone else's construct of what a marriage has to look like. As long as it meets the criteria for our deen to be permissible, that's it. So just keep that in mind moving forward. Whatever deal you construct for yourself does not have to fit what someone else may say for you. And again, this comes up because what we talked about before, what I mentioned before, sisters with children, especially daughters, I'm of the opinion, be open to not living with the person for the first 6 months to a year, to make sure this person is who he said he is before you introduce that person to a living arrangement where you guys are together with your children. Just something to consider. It's not a must, but something to think about.
I want to take the temperature check on that, actually, because I think we mentioned that last week, didn't we? And I want to see from the viewers, those of you who are live and those of you watching on the replay, what are your thoughts on that? Firstly, have you done that? Have you done nikah and then spent a period of time sort of halal dating, if you like? So you're halal for each other, but you don't move in together. Would you ever consider an arrangement like that? Do you think that there's any benefit in it? Do you think there's harms in it? Let us know your thoughts on that, inshallah. I just want to share this piece of kind advice here from Sister Hanifa, who says, I understand that this can be remedied by strengthening one's relationship with Allah Trusting him can get you through anything. And she says, I would try to leave myself open to marriage again. May Allah make it easy. I would definitely want to go to this question. People fighting about the 5 love languages in the chat, and I want to jump in there because we've got a very unique take on this. Okay, so Jay, the 5 love languages it's a pop psychology book, popular psychology, meaning by a guy called Jerry Chapman. And in his work as a family therapist, he basically came up with or identified that people give and receive love in almost different languages or different dialects. Okay, so they perceive love differently. So for one, they need it to be verbalized for them to get it, right? And they themselves are typically very verbal with it. So these are the words of affirmation people, the people who like to be appreciated verbally, right? Who to be told that, that they're grateful, or you're great, or thanks so much, or you look lovely. It's a verbal thing, right? That's the words of affirmation people. Then there is the quality time people who need time, who really feel loved when their spouse actually makes time to be with them, to talk to them, to listen to them, to just be in their space, right? Then you have the physical touch people who need to be touched, right? It's not to do with the bedroom. It's literally hugs, holding hands, a stroke of the shoulder. If they don't get that, then they just don't feel loved, or they don't get it, right? Then there's the gift-giving people. And when my children have heard about these 5 love languages, they just think the gift-giving one is like such a cop-out. but some people, that's how they express their love, by giving gifts. And some people, what they want really to show that you were thinking of them is that you got them something, right? And then you have the acts of service. So these are people who express their love for you by doing things for you. And likewise, they want things to be done for them. Now, somebody mentioned in the chat that there are more than 5 love languages, and I'm sure that could be true. But I think what is important at this point is what I hear people making reference to the 5 love languages. It's almost a demand that you must speak my language. And if you don't speak my language or learn my language, I will not feel loved and I will not be happy. No matter how much you are expressing love in your language, it will not be good enough for me until you're speaking it in my language, right? And I think, Brother Nasser, do you want to just jump in? Because we had this conversation and this was one of the things that we came out with, which is that when it becomes a problem is when you have a demand that your spouse speak your love language, or it's not good enough, like it's not okay.
Yeah, I think that to me is my challenge with the text, is that I don't see that I never, as long as I've had conversations with people who've read this book, and I'm gonna be very straightforward, I haven't read it. I have it. It's collected dust for years. I sense from them this demand that you must know my love language, and you must fit into the box of my love language, and you must express yourself in that manner. And that goes back to what I said early in the very beginning, and I put in the chat. Your wants, your preferences, your desires are fine. Nothing wrong with that. It's in your best interest to learn a modality so that way you can stay in the best space mentally and emotionally to influence your partner to be able to respond in a manner that's consistent with your love language. That's desirable. That's strategic. Makes sense. Do it. But it gets problematic when you demand that your spouse, your partner, respond to you or be in alignment with your love language. That to me is just problematic. It's self-sabotaging. And I think I'm yet to really have a conversation with anyone who's read that book and articulates that point. I rarely hear, this is my love language, and I would prefer that, he knew it and related to me in that manner. But if he doesn't, it's okay.
I'm struggling with this because
but so you cannot struggle with that, because if you agree with Shorty from Belgium from the beginning of the live stream, then this coincides with that, expectations. One of the expectations that people have nowadays is that you must adhere to number 3 of the 5 love languages, which is my love language. And if you don't, then that must mean that you don't love me enough.
No,
and I will sip my coffee while you try to say that I'm wrong.
Actually, the reason I struggle with it is because I just think it's not the type of thing that should be discussed up front. And I see people, when they're looking for someone, they'll put it out there. Oh, by the way, my love language is gifts. Oh, by the way, my love language is acts of service. Okay. Oh, by the way, my love language is quality time, and I need me some quality time. And it's like, okay, so what are we saying here? You're going to only match somebody who matches with you in terms of your love language? Like, this is stupid. I'm sorry to say, it's just stupid as far as I'm concerned. And it's one of those things. I think it's a crutch. I think it's become a relationship crutch. I'm so self-aware and so kind of, centered that I know what my love language is. Oh, do you really though? And are you saying that because you know your love language, you cannot recognize love in any other form? So if you end up marrying a man, for example, who is not verbal, right? He does not express his love vocally, verbally, but the guy treats you like a princess. He keeps you in the manner in which you're accustomed, etc. Are you going to be that spoilt brat that says, but you never say you love me though? This is immature. I think it's, for me, I'm over it. I think that's what I want to say. I'm over it. Mm-hmm. I'm over it, guys. Yeah, and this is the kind of thing now there, and again, maybe the reason why somebody mentioned that it's like popular psychology and it's kind of not worth our time, although mashallah people have obviously benefited from it. I think the key here is, do we want to get to know our spouses in a way that we are able to respond to their needs? This is just a tool for us to do that at the end of the day, right? Mm-hmm. So if you know that your husband, let's talk about the sisters, if you know that your husband likes a quiet house when he comes home, what love language is that? It's not any of the 5 love languages, right? But you know that he appreciates that. You know that that is what he needs for his peace of mind when he comes home from work, and he's, the stereotypical scenario that we keep talking about, right? But my point is, love language or not, however you want to call it, our part of our work in our marriages is learning how to love each other, right? And maybe love languages are a shortcut to that, but learning each other's ways, learning what makes it good, what makes it not so good, what turns them on or off, what puts them in a good space and in a bad space. That's part of the work that we need to do. And I guess the love languages are like a shortcut, for us to be able to say, yeah, that's me, right? But I don't think I don't think it's as much of a deal breaker as people are making it into, right? And I don't think you should allow the fact that your spouse speaks a different love language to you and maybe cannot or will not speak your language. I don't think you should allow that to destroy your relationship, because if he loves you, you're going to know it. And if he doesn't, if he doesn't love you, you probably will know that too. But anyway, this is our thing.
No, I think that's a good point. I think that's a really good point. And I think it can help by giving you a framework for looking at expression, right, of love. I think it's great in that regard. But I just think, unfortunately, the people that I've come across, they seem very rigid with it. And that to me is problematic.
I like this comment. My love language is seeing my spouse genuinely try to display love in any healthy way it's displayed. I've had to learn that in the practical experience of marriage. And yes, I have read it. I like that approach. I think we shouldn't have this rigid idea that I only understand love when it's expressed to me in this way. And if it's not expressed to me in that way, we have a problem. I think that rigidity is not helpful.
Yeah.
What do you guys
think?
Can
we go back? It was another comment up here that you put up when the sister was saying it can be resolved by the connection with Allah.
Oh, it's too far up now. That was way, way, way up. I think
Yeah.
she was talking about the trauma.
Yeah, I'll read it to you. The sister says, I understand, but this is remedied by strengthening one's relationship with Allah, trusting Him, and can get you through anything. I would try to leave myself open to marriage again. So just a point with that. Obviously, nothing against that in terms of building your relationship with your Lord and trusting your Lord. But I think you also need to understand a model so that you can understand your thinking, your thoughts, and how that's connected to your feelings. Because if your thinking is off, it will distort your perception of the relationship you have with your Lord. So if you have a core belief that you're unlovable, then it's going to distort the perception of what you see your Lord doing in your life. So that's just a point to because that core belief of being unlovable colors, that's the lens that you perceive and evaluate everything that happens in your life, including your relationship with your Lord. Right? So just a side note, yeah, strengthen your relationship with your Lord, trust your Lord, but also do the work to learn how to understand your thinking and your feeling so that you can regulate both.
100%. And the conversation about the love language is raging in the chat, mashallah. And just, most of this, I believe, again, comes from our upbringing and how we were shown love as children, right? If we grew up in a very tactile family where there was a lot of hugging and touching and closeness, physical closeness, to be married to somebody who grew up in an opposite environment, who does not expect, to be kind of cuddled up on the couch, etc., it can be difficult because that's what you've grown to know is love, is family, etc. So anyway, guys, if you like it, then go read the book. It's not a hard book. It's not a very long book either. Go read the book and then come back on the channel and tell us what you thought. Inshallah, you get some benefit from it. I found it very useful. It was interesting and useful, but what I don't like is how people are kind of using it as a stick to beat people with now, and also making it like a prerequisite for happiness that you have to speak my love language. So that is the story on that. Okay, subhanallah. Right, we've lost control of the chat. It's mashallah. Everybody is going crazy. I think if you have read the book, you learn to see how others are showing you love. Yes, I agree, sis. I have also learned how to request love in a healthy way. Brother Nasser, I invite you to read the book. Yes, and it's true. One of the things that I think that the book really does well is breaking down the fact that we don't all understand love in the same way, right? We don't all interpret the same behaviors as somebody loving us, right? So this is interesting here. Okay.
Can we just pause right quick? For everyone in the chat, we're going later on to look at some profiles. So if you have a sister that's interested in marriage and looking to get married, why don't you quickly send her a DM and tell her to get on this live chat so that she can see the profile or two that we're going to eventually come to. So everybody send that DM to your girlfriend that's looking to get married.
Yes, because we are about to transition into that just now. Do you want to just pick up some of the chats and just read them, Brother Nasser, while I line up these slides? Because we can go into the profiles now, mashallah. We didn't speak about being agreeable. We didn't really go into submission much at all, but
we can dive
what
into
we were
that.
supposed to be. Yeah,
we can dive into agreeable. I'm for that. I just wanted to make sure people start getting their friends to tune in so that way they can see the profiles that we're highlighting. Yeah. Apologies. One of the potentials I told to join the chat as well. So yeah, I mean, we can dive into agreeableness. I think it's
okay.
important.
All right. So let's cut to the chase. Okay, let's cut to the chase. Why? And okay, just for some context. Again, I already gave my story, guys. I had an issue with the word submission. It didn't sit well with me, whatever. I think one of the things that was surprising to me when I started listening to men in general talking amongst themselves was that non-Muslim men talked about submission. They talked about a submissive woman, right? And for the longest time, sisters had thought that it was only Muslim men who had this issue, right? Needing their wives to be obedient and submissive, right? And quiet and just do as they're told and all of this. And that other men are, kind of broader minded, are more confident. They're not intimidated by a confident woman, blah, 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 blah. So to find non-Muslim men, non-religious men talking about a woman submitting, a woman's submission was a huge eye opener for me, because I was like, oh, what? This is a man thing? This is not like a Muslim man thing. This is not a Desi thing. It's not an Arab thing. It's a man thing. It's a masculine man thing. So give us the tea, because many of us don't know, because especially people who are new to this conversation, they don't know, and they haven't heard men talking about what is so great about an agreeable woman. What's so great about a submissive woman? Tell us.
So I think there's a number of answers to that. And one is, look, I have, as a man, a divine mandate to be a provider and a protector. So that means I have to get up every day to go out and earn a living to be able to provide for my family. And that's not an easy task. Oftentimes I have to tolerate things that I do not like, and be in spaces that I don't want to be in, because I have that divine mandate to provide. So when I come home, I don't want to have to deal with someone that is disagreeable, someone that is giving me more tension and headache and stress, like I just had to go through for the first 8 hours of my day at the job. So on a very practical level, no man wants to deal with that, because if that's the case, he's going to spend 16 hours of his day dealing with disagreeable, controlling, potentially domineering people in the public and in the private. No man wants that. And then the other thing is, if you're a man and you have a vision for your family and you have a direction, you don't need someone who's on the team that is, digging holes in the boat, right? Or questioning the direction that you have mapped out. That no system works like that. No business works like that. No corporation works like that. No team works like that. And marriage isn't an individual sport. It's not golf. So it's a team sport, right? We're on this team. So you have a role to play, and you need to be agreeable in that position that I've given you. So for me, that's one of the reasons why. No one has time for that additional tension. And it's also ownership on a man, though, before he gets married, to check for that agreeableness. Does she like the program that I'm offering her, the direction I want to go in, and not just be that nice guy that just, wants to pander to her and give her what he thinks she needs in the beginning, so that she agrees to marry him. That's desperation talking. That's neediness. And again, no woman likes a needy man.
So what's the opposite of being agreeable or submissive, in your view?
Confrontational. Confrontational. Being confrontational. Being challenging the direction and the focus of the husband. Yeah. And like I said, no man wants that. No man wants that. However, but this is an important point. Yes. So a sister should be submissive. She should be agreeable. However, a man should also understand how he's going to handle when she's not. Right?
Okay.
Because that's a reality. That's a reality. So just as I can say, no corporation, no team has a system where there's no designated leader. There's a leader, and then there are those that are the followers, right? That are under the leader. That's in corporations, that's in successful business, that's in a team. Granted, if I use that point, I also have to acknowledge that a leader also has to understand that there are going to be people on the team that at times don't agree with their vision, that may act in a counterproductive way, may self-sabotage the vision or the program, the direction. They may not get the vision. So it's for me as a leader to screen them before I hire them and give them a contract to be on the team. That's on me, right? And then once they're on the team, it's also on me to manage the team and to manage the player, manage the sister in a way that helps to influence her to get on board with being agreeable and to understand the vision, not just be harsh and rude and rough. That's not leadership. But this comes back to a point that I mentioned before in terms of being able to discipline yourself as a man, right? To be able to lead yourself, right? That gap, right, in integrity. Right? What is the integrity gap in yourself? Because if you fix that, oftentimes that will influence, right? So I think that's the meat of that phrase that is thrown around, that if you're a man, right, a masculine man, then you don't have to question submission. You don't have to say it because she'll just follow. The meat of that is if you have integrity, then she will see that and follow your example, right? Because you set a model, right? But that takes ownership for me as a man. So yes, I can say I want submission, but the flip side of that is I also have to be able to understand and handle when I'm not getting submission, and also model what I want, right? Demonstrate that I have the integrity, I have the skill sets and the resources that should give you the validation or give you the comfort to follow me. So both people have a role to play when it comes to submission. It's not just sister be submissive. Right? It's a valid question for a sister to ask, although she should ask this before marriage. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
That's that conversation we had in the marriage conversation where I had a different perspective. The other perspectives are fine as well, but at a different perspective, you respect me from day one. You get more evidence for why you are respecting me post marriage. Similarly, you're submitting to me from day one. You get more evidence post marriage as to why you made that decision. But once you agree to the contract that I give, the deal is done.
So what about the idea of a joint vision, right? This is interesting to me because obviously the way that we conceive of things is that we've got two people coming together, two people with their own experiences and their own, background and talents and capabilities, etc. Is there a sense that a man, when he is to marry, already has figured out his vision for his family? Or is there, he's going to find the woman and together they're going to create a vision? And again, this is obviously, there's no hard and fast rule, but, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that just, I think.
Is it his program or is it a co-created program? I guess that's what I want to say.
I think it can be co-created, but it can be co-created with the understanding that he has the final stamp on whatever's created. Right? I think that's important. So for example, I am someone that's very much, so when I was getting married, one of my criteria was whoever I married had to be okay. It was no question about this. You had to accept homeschooling, period. That's just me. But I understand some brothers are not that involved or not that focused on the education piece. That's something that in their mind, they outsource to their wife. Their wife handles that. So in that sense, that could be co-created, right? He's delegating it to his wife to figure out the education piece.
Sure.
So at the end of the day, though, he's the one that has the final say on it. And if he goes into it with that mindset, I don't think there's an issue with that. But if he goes into it with the mindset that he's, submitting to whatever she says, and not that he has the final say, and that she's bringing to him what might be best, and that might be the case, but he has the final say on that. And I think that's that leadership piece that he can't shy away from. And if he does, again, it comes back to what I said before. Women don't like men that they can control.
Yeah. This is exactly what I wanted to say, and mashallah sis mentioned it. I learned we should marry a man on a mission with purpose. So to that point, I think that, the burden of performance, unfortunately, does lie on men if they want the optimal situation in their relationship. Because I think no matter what many women may say, what they truly respect is a man who's on his purpose and a man who is in his frame, right? And they may not like that all the time. Ladies, we can be honest. It's okay. This is my channel, okay? We can be honest. You may not like the fact that your husband has boundaries or has a particular standard. You may wish that he was a bit easier, or if he just listened more, or if he just did things the way you think they should be done more, right? And just let you run things, let you control things. Even though you may like that idea or may like to think about that, what you respect is that your husband is the rock, right? And you have the freedom to be the sea. Sorry, guys, I love this analogy. I love this analogy that the husband is the rock. He is the anchor of the family. And although we like to think of ourselves as strong and capable, and mashallah, in our own ways, we are strong and capable, and we have vision, we have ideas and all of this, even when we do it, because I think it's not natural to us, it weighs on us very heavily. So you'll find that many sisters are the rocks in their family, right? But they don't like it. And it's heavy on them and it's cumbersome on them. And fil akhir, in the end, they resent their husband for that. So even if initially they were happy that he passed things over to them and they had the so-called freedom to go and take care of this and do that and be in charge of this and be in charge of that. But this is what Laura, I think her name's Laura Doyle, talks about in The Surrendered Wife, right? Where women, we like to control things. We like to be in control. We like to micromanage. We like to boss around. Girls, ladies, just put yes in the chat if you know what I'm talking about, okay? And a certain part of you gets a thrill when your husband lets you do that, or when you've managed to control him in this or this or this area. The only problem is, and like I said, you like it, right? The only problem with that is that it eats into your respect for him. So although you may like it and you get that thrill, there's two things that happen. One, you lose respect for him because he's shown that he has the weaker frame. Because if two opposing ideas come, the one with the stronger frame will win, right? So he's shown you that he has the weaker frame. So there, the respect is lost. And secondly, you end up taking the majority of the load. And although it feels good at the beginning because now you're in charge, at the end of the day, you will start to resent him because a part of you knows that's not your role. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. So even if he lets you do it, even if initially you're happy that he lets you do it, in the end, because now you're in a space where you're not meant to be there, you're not created to be there, you're in this masculine frame, you're playing this masculine role, in the end, you will become resentful and tired. And ladies, let me know. I think people are saying in the chat, mashallah. Look at this.
It reminds me of a session I had with a sister the other day. I pulled up the notes, and a phrase that she used stood out to me. And she said, I feel like I'm a caretaker, right?
Yeah.
And like,
put no caretakers in the chat, guys.
No
caretakers.
How many sisters I've had this conversation with, wherein that they are essentially halal roommates living together, and she's articulated in various ways, different clients have articulated in various ways, they're a caretaker, right? And no man should position himself to be in that place, right? I like one of the comments the brother said. Which one was it? Yeah, this is it right here. So we are killing ourselves. We have to be able to trust Allah first and then let the man lead. He doesn't have to do it perfectly, but you must get with his program. That's it. That's it. And that's the mindset, sisters, that you need to look for in a man, right? That you are going to have a voice, but you just understand that his voice makes the final decision.
And especially for the kind of man that you want.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And again, that's where the dream and the reality clash, right? The dream is a man who never tells you no, right? The dream is a man who will do anything for you. All the poetry and the songs and everything, right? We talked about this in last week's show. The dream is a fantasy, is the guy who would go out and find the world and bring it to you. Go and pick the stars from the sky and bring it to you. You know, basically do anything and everything that you want just to make you happy, just to bring a smile to your face. You know, all that good stuff, right? That's the fantasy. The only trouble is the men who have self-respect and have purpose and know their worth and are in their frame, they're not that guy. Right? They're not that guy. So the man that you want to lead your family is a leader. He doesn't run after you, making your dreams come true. That's not his job, right? That's not his role. And, you know, I think this was something that Kevin Samuels used to say, and it is one of those things that stuck with me. And it was, men are not here for your amusement, right? Men are not in this world for your play and amusement. They're not here to make your world this amazing place as if that's their sole purpose, you know, is to please you, make you happy, make you fill you up with all the things that you want, right? That's not his purpose. And we, you know, Kevin Samuels aside, we know from the deen that that's nothing to do. Like, of course, the treatment and the respect and the, you know, looking after, it's all that, but we're talking about another level here. We're not talking about just good treatment, which of course the Prophet ﷺ advised us all to, you know, to treat our wives with. We're talking about somebody who exists for your happiness. And that's not the guy that you want, because that's not the guy that will lead your family. That's not the guy who can make the hard decisions. That's not the guy who can, you know, put in the work necessary, even when you don't like it. Because I remember, just briefly, I want to share this story. I remember when my late husband and our children, when we left Egypt for during the Thawra, we went to South Africa because the revolution was kicking off in Egypt, and they had cut the internet. And so we left to go to South Africa. We were there for about 2 months. And while we were there, just for fun, we said, you know, in South Africa, they open up houses on the weekend for people to drive in the neighborhood that they like and go and see show houses, right? Go and see houses out for sale. So we did that just for fun one day. And we saw this house and we just fell in love with this house. It was just such a beautiful house. And we didn't own any property at that time. And we talked about it. We discussed, you know, is there a possibility of going back to Egypt? Would we need to establish ourselves in South Africa, etc., etc.? And we decided to put an offer for the house. So from that day, I hardly saw him, because he woke up at 6 a.m. every day and went to like the common area and just was on his grind. He was just on his grind. I was stuck in the one room with the kids. I think there were 3 of them at the time, trying to keep them off Cartoon Network, okay, trying to keep them busy with Kumon and, you know, maths papers, and just trying to keep them busy on my own, right? And he was on his grind and he was doing this thing. And mashallah, tabarakallah, I don't know how long it took him to do it, but he made the money to buy that house in that period of time. Mashallah. Why do I share this? Mashallah, tabarakallah. Why do I share this though? Because a man who's on his purpose has to focus on his purpose. And if you're married to a man who's on his purpose, your role is to support him as he goes out and gets these things, goes out and fights for these things, goes out and finds the things that are needed for the family. So in those periods of time, and there could be many of them, it's not going to be the relationship that you want. You don't want to be like a single parent, of course not. You know, you want help with the kids, you want, a break, you want, not to have to do this and not to have to do that, right? But your role at that time is to support the vision. He's out there doing the thing, your role is to support. And I think it's really important for us all, in whatever capacity we're called on to do this, is to play your role on the team. Just play your part on the team and don't sabotage the team through your own personal stuff.
That's where that emotional regulation comes in, right? Because if you don't have control of your emotions, and that doesn't mean you have to be perfect with it every day or every moment, but when your emotions, when you're led purely by emotion with no element of logic in it, that's when you can sabotage the relationship, and that can be problematic, right? It sounds, simplistic, but it's really true. Play your role. Play the position that you got on the team for.
Okay.
There was another point up there where the sister says, leadership is given to those whose actions represent what they speak. That's what I mentioned before about the integrity gap, right? Leading oneself, a man leads himself, right? It sets a blueprint, a model for those that are under him, that are following him, his wife and his children. But the ownership on the sister is this: you vet for that beforehand. Look for integrity beforehand. Ask those questions about the vision beforehand. That's one of the things that I made a post about before. If you're not following me on IG, you should. Nasir Alameen. Remember, check for integrity, check for what his vision is, and then ask him, what role can you play in that to support it? That's one of the things you can do to help, right? That's one of the things you can do to see what his vision is. Right? Where do you want to take the family, and how do you see me helping in that role? And see what he responds. And if he doesn't even give you a clear vision, then I think that tells you something in and of itself. If he gets uncomfortable that you asked him about that, I think that tells you something as well.
Yeah.
But
it could be
purpose. This is an alley-oop. This is you gave him it's like taking a test and all you have to do is write your name to get an A, right? If you ask him that type of question for a man that's really been focused.
So for the brothers who are listening, you want to be focused and you want to be able to answer that question. I want to just go into this question here, mashallah. Sis says she was talking about, is asking why basically not, hold on a minute. It was quite important actually, because she was saying, like, if you ask why, is that always a sign of confrontation? That's right. So she was explaining to say there are different ways that people process information. Some people focus on what, some on when, some on why. I ask why questions to understand why people do things instead of assuming. And then she mentions that Allah allowed the messengers to ask questions in order to understand. But I'm wondering whether this is the type of question that you could have, the type of conversation you could have with somebody that you're considering marrying, which is, how do you feel about me asking when you've made a decision or when you're considering something? How do you feel about me asking why? And have that conversation. What do you think, Brother Nasser?
Yeah, I think tone and diction is important. So if you're going to use the question of why, I think it's important. What is your tone? When are you asking why? Right? And if you're going to say why, is there another way to word it? Right? Because again, we got to remember, if you look, what I say often is this, sisters, what I need you to do is that same level of thinking, discernment that you use at work, I want you to use it at home with your husband. Just as you're meticulous in how you word things with your supervisor at work, I want you to have that same level of discernment and being meticulous about how you word things with your husband. So maybe why isn't the best way to ask the question. Maybe just having a conversation with him, you'll understand what the why is. And then you also have to ask yourself, why are you still asking why? Because is this really asking why so that you can finally get him to change his mind, or to see that you're really right after you've already had the conversation? All right. So I think tone, diction, when you're having the conversation, and what's the reason for having the conversation. If it's literally clarity, then okay. But I would make sure I'm in the right space mentally and emotionally before I sought that clarity. But I wouldn't make that a prerequisite for me to follow.
I think that's the sticking point, isn't it? That's the submission piece. That
Right.
is the submission piece right
You don't
there.
have to get it. You don't have to get it. You don't have to understand why. Fall in line.
Okay. Brother Nasser is in his trick bag again.
Right. that's 101. Fall in line.
Oh my God.
Because that's what you're gonna do at work, aren't you? Let's be real. You're gonna do that at work. You're going to fall in line and give your supervisor what he's asking of you, regardless of what you think, regardless of what you feel. So give that same deference to the man who's been given the divine mandate to be your provider and your protector.
Pushback.
And if not, brother, I would not advise you to stay in a situation where she can't give that to you. That's not asking for too much.
Need some pushback for you.
I am sorry, but it sounds really terrible if I have to act with my husband as I act at work with my manager. No, what I'm asking you to do is have that discernment, meaning you pause and you think about what you're saying. Now, if you don't think you need to have that with your spouse, I would suggest you revisit the role you should play as a wife. There's always room to think before you speak. And so what I'm suggesting is the same time when you're at work, you think before you disagree with your supervisor, or how you're going to disagree with your supervisor. Your husband is definitely deserving of that same discernment and respect. So
I think it's the respect piece as well.
Yeah, please, I'm welcome to push back. To me, this is rudimentary. You do it at work, meaning you literally will think about your thinking before you express your thoughts. You would definitely think about your feelings before you allow your feelings to color the experience. Why not do that at home?
See, I wonder if the sister will.
Let me say. So what happens is this: you ABC. A is the event, B is the belief, C is the consequences. Emotionally, the emotional consequence, the behavioral consequence. The A at work, supervisor says something that I disagree with. What is the thinking? The B, the thinking is, I don't like this. However, it's not the end of the world. I can handle it. And I need to pay for my kids' private school. The C is, I'm irritated. The C, so emotional C, emotional consequence is I'm irritated. The behavioral consequence is I agree with him, and I complete the report after work hours. Why? Not because your supervisor told you to, but because of the B, the belief, the narrative, the meaning you created about what your supervisor said. The B is what you have control over. You don't have control over the supervisor. You have control over the belief, the narrative you create after your supervisor says something, requests something that you don't like. That narrative, that meaning you created is what produced the C. right? The frustration and irritation, which is a healthy negative emotion, the healthy alternative to anger, and produce the you sitting down at your desk and filling out that report and getting to him after hours before you left your job. So what I'm saying is that same formula I want you to use at home with your husband. I want you to be able to sit down with yourself in the moment and question, what are you telling yourself when you hear something that you don't like, right? When you experience an emotion that is uncomfortable, I want you to ask yourself, what am I telling myself? Because what you told yourself when your supervisor asked you to fill out that report before you leave work today, that emotion you created came from the narrative that you created once he said that. So that's what I'm saying you should do. I'm not saying you need to act as you act or put on the mask that you put on when you're at work. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is I want you to have that same deference for your husband, to give him that modality, that deliberate thinking, i.e., this event happened, this is the narrative I created, and this is how I feel, and this is what I do, what I did. Is this constructive or helpful or not? And if it's not, I'm going to go back and change the way I'm thinking so that I get the outcome that I would like, or be able to influence the outcome that I would like. That's what I'm asking you to do.
Okay, put your comments in the chat, guys. Let us know your thoughts on that. And I need to know from Bob. He said he witnessed the cringiest YouTube channel, so he's here to clean his brain with common sense. I love that. jazakAllahu khairan. Please do tell us what was the cringe. We all want to know, inshallah. Okay, so I think we are going to try. There's just so much here, mashallah. Lots of love coming in here for what you're saying. Obviously, the sisters and the brothers are giving this an air horn. Issue with modern times is about both wife and husband having to pretend, so they no longer have a safe place to offset. I think another issue, really, to be honest, is that in a lot of families, the husband is not the sole provider, or maybe even the main provider. And I think that's where it becomes an issue for maybe many sisters. You guys can let me know in the chat, is if you're both working, if you're both contributing to the household, right? And if you basically can't survive without both incomes or whatever, there is an element of, no, if we're going to make decisions, especially decisions that involve money or finances and stuff like that, we need to be making these decisions together. I can't just, my husband can't just lead the whole situation.
No, that's a narrative you create, though.
Yeah, I know.
That's still a narrative you create.
Well, guys, I'm articulating that is the narrative. So what are your thoughts on that?
You asking me or you asking them? Because I think it's problematic.
Well, it may well be problematic, but what's the answer? Because I would say this: if your wife is,
the answer is get in line.
No, wait a second. No, we're not accepting that, because if you are a kept woman, all right, everyone knows this. Everyone knows this. Everyone knows this.
The problem is some sisters, not all, not accepting that divine structure. Men
are no. Okay, hold on a second, because if you bring that, you're talking about an ideal. But we're talking about a less than ideal situation where the woman is a provider or a breadwinner. That's not the ideal scenario. And that's why it's not very helpful to come with, okay, but in the ideal scenario, okay, let's be real. If you are providing everything for your wife, okay, financially, everything is taken care of, she does not have to worry or think about anything, 9 times out of 10, she's going to allow you to lead, no pushback, nothing to say. The minute, and again, I could be wrong, guys, but I think
and you are, but go ahead. And you are,
I'm not wrong on this. Listen, at the end of the day,
9 times out of 10.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not going to vouch for the ummah. Okay, today is not the day for that. But what I will say is that
you're a writer, not a mathematician.
Even I think most women understand that if he's leading the house financially, he takes the lead. Khalas. Where the waters become muddy is where she is performing part of his traditional role. So if you have both parents working, and I have friends like this, that's why I'm bringing this up, and because this is a real thing. And obviously, a lot of the time we speak in terms of the man working, woman at home. I would love to see actual figures on how often that's actually happening in Muslim homes, especially today, right? How many Muslim homes are based on a single income? How many Muslim homes are based on an income or on a system where the wife may work, but her money is her own and she doesn't spend it on the house? I have friends who both parents work, they're teachers, they both work the same hours, they bring in more or less the same amount, and decisions like buying a property, fixing up a place, holidays, etc., she's paying for that, right? So I think it's disingenuous to say that that doesn't change the dynamic. I think that it's problematic to say that that doesn't change the dynamic somehow. And if you do say that it doesn't change the dynamic, I would like you to explain how. See, sometimes I do disagree with him, guys. Can I just say, sometimes I do disagree, okay? And I will speak up for the other stuff that I know. Say what?
You disagree, but you're still wrong.
Guys, please. I'm open to being wrong, but this is the reality. So
I agree with you. And that the client that I told you about in terms of being a caretaker, that's one of the things that she mentioned as well. She's earning more, and she's paying, for example, car lease and phone bills and all of these other things and groceries. And so I know that reality exists. I get it. The point that I'm saying, though, is you can still have the narrative that this is my husband. He is the leader of the home, and I will defer to him as the leader. That's the point that I'm making. You're choosing to have a different narrative that since I'm bringing in 50-50, or I'm bringing in 50%, or I'm contributing, period, then I have, because I'm bringing in some financial means, I have a seat at the table in terms of decision making. That's a narrative. You construct that.
Yeah.
And if you construct it, you can deconstruct it. And
that's my question. Why?
Because if you're dealing with a masculine man, not the dream.
Oh, the niqab is getting tugged, bro.
Here we go. If you're dealing with a masculine man, versus someone who's, the nice guy type, then it's not an issue. But if you're dealing with a masculine man, he's going to want to naturally lead. So then it's producing consequences to the relationship. So that's why you shouldn't do it. We don't have to deal with the religion aspect of this. Just the reality is you're dealing with a masculine man. He's not going to accept, and it's not going to rub him well that you are controlling and leading the marriage.
How is the masculine man okay with her working and paying half the bills then?
So he may not be. I'm not saying that he is, but for whatever reason, yes, there's multiple reasons how they could get in that dynamic, but that may have been something that they agreed upon at the very beginning before they got married. Then the question would become, sis, why did you marry him?
Okay, why? Why is that a question?
Because if you don't want to be contributing to the marriage, and if you want to work and you don't want your funds to have to be given to the family's success, then you shouldn't be marrying a man that's going to tell you that. Now, if in the process of the relationship, something comes up, an injury, harm, something comes up, and then he asks you to, that's a different conversation. But going into a marriage, and is this the scenario you're talking about? Going into a marriage where it is 50-50 initially? Is that what we're talking about? Because if that's
I think in many people's situations, that's the reality. Both parents are working.
Let's roll with that. If that's the case, and it's something where it's further question, is this need-based, or she grew up wanting to be a engineer or wanting to be a doctor, and she's gone too far into her education and she wants to get something out of this education.
No, for the sake of argument, let's say needs-based.
Okay, if it's a needs-based, even if it's a needs-based situation, the question becomes, if he's naturally a masculine man, he's going to want to lead.
So you still haven't answered the question, though. The question is, are you saying that, say, and again, let's use the example, both parents are teachers, like I said, more or less earning the same amount.
Okay.
Their combined incomes keep the family going, right? It's not like one of them is paying for everything and the other one is saving. Their combined income is what keeps the family going. So in a situation like that, what I'm saying is that many women would not be okay with not having a seat at the table. That's her money that she worked for to put into the pot. So to say she shouldn't even expect a seat at the table to discuss like the plans and the vision and what's going on and everything like that, because that's what a seat at the table is. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. See, this is what I appreciate. I appreciate this. This is what you did. No one, and we said this at the very beginning, so you can check the tape. It's not about you not having a voice. It's about the final decision.
Okay.
So I'm not saying you don't have a seat at the table to have a voice. I'm saying you don't have a seat at the table to make the final decision.
Yes, so that's fine. Please. But no, because you said no seats at the table. Hey, hello, right. Can we roll back the tape?
No,
because the word was you don't get a seat at the table. If you have a masculine man, he wants to lead, you don't get a seat at the table.
Right, in terms of the final decision.
Okay.
Ooh.
So that means that we sat at the table, we talked, we discussed, we weighed up, we did all of this, and then by the time it was decision time, I was ejected from the table. I said, okay, I'll deal with this from now on. Yeah. Basically.
Just for spice, and to set off the sisters in the chat. Yeah, you're dismissed.
No, I'm the one who's going to be set off, not the sisters in the chat.
Yeah, we've discussed. You can leave now.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got some issues now, but there are some problems. We're going to have some problems. Can you guys imagine? Like, anyway, you guys can tell me in your country, because different cultures, right, have different approaches to women working, right? And I know we've got, mashallah, some Nigerians in the chat and on the channel. And I know like Yoruba women got their hustle on 24/7. Okay, give me a yes in the chat if you guys know what I'm talking about. Yoruba women, they've got their hustle on, and in a lot of countries out of the West, and even in the West anyway, women working, having some kind of job, having some kind of, hustle as they say. It's like it's mandatory almost, right? Kids go to school, you can't just stay, because being a housewife is a luxury. Being a housewife is a luxury and a privilege. And I think one of the conversations that we've been having, and that a lot of the sisters have been having, is for sisters who are able to stay home, who have the luxury of not having to work. It kind of it's unfortunate to hear them like chomping at the bit to get out into the workforce, right? Because they are actually the privileged ones. They are the lucky ones, right? They're the blessed ones who don't have to do that. For everybody else, it's a case of, for many people, it's a case of, it's a necessity, right? This is what I have to do. And, in the UK, for example, back in the 90s, early 2000s, probably before that, if you were a mother, you could stay at home, khalas. Like, you would get benefits, they would give you benefits, they'll give you all this help from the government welfare and stuff, even if you're married. But they've cut all of that. And now, after the last child is a certain age, they are on your case to see, where are you working? If you're not working, we're cutting your benefits. You're not going to get benefits anymore if you don't show that you're looking for a job. They want people out in the workplace. They don't want you at home. So it's, I like the fact that we can have this conversation, we can have this back and forth, and we can also see how it's not just one way. There isn't one situation that has one view. There are so many diverse experiences of this. But I think to kind of bring it all back, and hopefully give the sisters and the brothers, something beneficial from this spat, is that at the end of the day, a man is a man is a man. And a man will always appreciate, respect, and expect to be respected by his wife, regardless, guys. And if you can hold on to respecting him regardless of the finances, whether you earn more, whether you earn less, whether you're both contributing, etc., it will be easier to be in that relationship, right? To be in that marriage. Because a man, even that man who cleans the streets, when he goes home, he wants respect.
Yeah.
The gardener who there is looking after the gardening, when he goes home, baba, as we say in Zimbabwe, right? Baba, he's the father, he's the man. And most men in almost every culture, I think every man in every culture, that is what he requires in order for him to feel good in that role, for him to perform in that role, right? So it helps to just bear that in mind, that your respect shouldn't be conditional. Your respect for your husband should not be conditional. And again, we're not talking about crazy stuff. We're not talking about somebody who has done crazy things and has lost your respect through bad behavior and betrayal and blah, blah, blah. We're just talking about the financial piece here. But yeah. Let's take a breath. I want to show these profiles. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this says here, why can't it be mutual when it comes to making decisions? I think we discussed this. There is a discussion over decisions, but the final say is the one who is responsible before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The final say is with the one who is responsible before Allah. And I think that that's a good way of framing it for any sister who's struggling with that, is that your oh wow, look, your energy is going to end your marriage. I'm not sure who Tahir was talking to. Hopefully not to me, but it helps to remember that this is not a power play. This is not about power. This is about responsibility, actually. So when it comes to the man being the leader, the man, taking the lead, making the decision, it's not because he's the powerful one or because he has all the power. He has the responsibility and he is accountable. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to question him about it. And, I don't think that's something that we want to trade. To be honest with you, you guys can have it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that I never really understood with sisters. Like, why do you want that heavy of a responsibility? Like,
because it's framed in power and freedom, not responsibility. That's why. That's the framing. It's he can do whatever he wants. He can make anything happen. He can go wherever he wants. No one questions him, right? Freedom and power. When actually it's a huge responsibility, subhanAllah. And I don't think that we look at it like that enough.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things when I first converted, one of the things that really stood out to me is it was the first time that it really came to my mind that my Lord is going to account for every penny that has touched my hands. Like the little penny that's in the couch or that you just throw away, it means nothing. Like every single ounce of fiat resource that has touched your hand, he has a ledger for it. Like that's a huge responsibility. Every dime, every penny, that's a huge responsibility. And there's a divine wisdom in why he gave it to men. But it just definitely, I just always wonder, why do women want that level of responsibility? I mean, think about how much money just comes through your hands. Yeah, it's deep. And I guess you're right. It's how it's framed, right? In terms of it's not being so much about responsibility. It's about, I guess, power, control.
Yes, and maybe that's just been our interpretation and the story that we tell ourselves, So sometimes, like we talked about yesterday, we look at our parents and we look at previous generations and we frame their actions. The men in my family had all the power, for example. The men in my family were controlling, for example, right? And while that could be true, it could also be something that you've not acknowledged, which was that men in my family took responsibility for all the women and the children. The men in my family took care of all the XYZ in our family. The men in our family had to deal with A, B, C, D in order for us to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And I think it's just helpful for both sexes to be able to see the work of the other and to appreciate the work of the other and not envy the work of the other, because Allah didn't give you that work, right? If indeed He didn't give it to you. So
another side point, I mentioned this to my wife the other day, and I think this is an important point that sisters, especially those who are housewives, because it was a healthy jealousy of my wife. I came home and my daughter was doing something different, and she had made this my daughter had made this kind of design for me, like a little craft thing. And one of the things that I was saying to my wife was, there's a blessing in being able to be the provider and to go out and take care of your family. But one of the costs to that is you miss out on those subtleties with your children. So I come home and I receive the craft that was made for me, and I'm thankful, alhamdulillah. But I miss the nuance and the experience of choosing the color. Why do you why this color? Why this particular craft versus this one? And just the amazement of a child when they are constructing something, and why they thought about this versus that. That whole gap between the beginning of the product or the craft that's she's thinking of making versus the end product. When you're out earning for your family, you miss that whole beautiful experience that happens, right? You only get that kind of tail end. And that's just a subtle blessing that sisters have, those who are housewives, that, can be overlooked, right? If you're not in the other's shoes, right? Because, for housewives, they're there and they see it, right? So they're in it. But for me, who's outside of it, husbands that are outside of it, and then come home and see kind of the end result, we're appreciative of the end result. But then it kind of, it can hit you that, you miss kind of the process, right? And the process is that thing.
And I think that's, firstly, mashallah, that's, a really beautiful reflection, mashallah. But I think it's also something that a lot of fathers are aware of, that maybe mothers don't feel as keenly, right? That while the majority of the load of parenting is on the mother, she also gets more of the joy. I think she gets more of the joy, the subtle changes, the little quirks, the getting to know the children on such a granular level, which of course is one of those blessings that we miss out on when we're in complaining mode, right? Why do I have to do this? Why am I always stuck with the kids? Oh God, I hate that expression so much. It's such a sad expression. Yeah. I'm here all day stuck with the kids. Wow. Wow.
What about a
very interesting question?
Go ahead.
What about if you had a child from a previous marriage where the dad is completely out of the picture? Does your new husband have the final say over the child, even if it's not his biologically? Ooh. Ay. Toughies. What say you?
This is one of the reasons why some men are of the perspective that they would prefer a woman that doesn't have children.
Yeah.
This issue right here.
Because it's not an easy one.
No.
It's not an easy one at all. And okay, so let me throw my hat in the ring. Let me throw my hat in the ring and say what I think on this one. And I think that if a man has come in as a father figure early enough in the child's development, you have a chance, right? If he feels paternal towards that child and he shows up in a paternal way, meaning that he takes responsibility, then I do think you have to, once again, it goes to your point about making sure that you vet correctly in the first instance, but also that you give yourselves time to acclimatize, right? So you don't meet him in month 1. In month 3, you do nikah and he moves in with you and your kid, right? And then he's in charge. That for me is a recipe for a lot of discomfort all round, for the child, for the mother, and for the new man, right? So let's look at a scenario where in month 1, you start talking, you do your vetting and everything like that. And if you do marry, you do nikah, and you have time apart where he can get to know the child, you can vet him, you can get to know the child, understand how the child works, etc. The child becomes familiar with him. So by the time you are together in a family home, the child knows him and they've established some kind of relationship, and you also know him enough to trust him to make decisions for your child or your children. What do you think of that?
No, I think that's again, this is why I mentioned earlier to the sister from before that I look, your marriage, your next marriage does not need to fit in the box of someone else. I firmly believe in making it halal, right? Get the nikah, but give yourself time to really see if there is integrity.
Yeah.
Before you introduce him to your kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think one of the things that, this issue with polygamy, which we've discussed a lot, right, is that at least one of the things that you can say, if we're going to make an argument for marrying a man who already has a family, is that you know a little bit at least about him as a family man, right? You know to a certain extent how he moves, how he looks after his family. And of course, no guarantees, guys, but nobody's out here offering guarantees. But you do have some kind of indication of how he is as a family man, how he talks about his children, how involved he is, etc., etc. And have the discussion. I'm a big proponent. Sisters, don't assume anything about the man who marries you when you have children. Don't make assumptions about how involved he's going to be, how much responsibility he wants to take, how much time he wants with them. Don't make any assumptions. Ask him what his vision is. Ask him how he wants to play this. Ask him what he's prepared to put in, what he wants out of it, and then make a decision based on that. Because there's an example of a sister who was talking with a brother, and it was one of those where they were talking for a year, okay, and he lived in another town, and she had young children, and she was a sister who was not coping with her young children. Like, their behavior was really bad. The house was a mess. She was so overwhelmed, right? And and this guy, obviously she fell in love with him, right? And he was the one piece of joy that she had, right? So when they would have the conversations and all the rest of it, it was this break from her really chaotic home life. But he said to her, I am not available to be a stepdad. That's not what I want. I want to come and see you a couple of weekends a month. We'll enjoy each other's company, and then I'm going to go back to my town. And the thing is, because she liked him, she may even have loved him, she was willing to entertain that scenario because she wanted to lock him down. And my point was this: there is a complete mismatch between what he has to give and what you require. You need help. That's the bottom line, right? For better or for worse, right or wrong, you are not coping. You're not coping with these kids. You are under pressure financially, mentally, physically, etc. So you cannot be some guy's weekend fling. You don't have the bandwidth for that, right? Because it doesn't solve your main problem. The fact that he came down to see you on the weekend and somehow you managed to find childcare to deal with the kids while you saw him, that doesn't solve your problem. And that, for me, we had this conversation yesterday, That's the type of marriage that, or the nikah, that people will do out of desperation. They want to lock him in. They want the physical peace. So they agree to a deal that ultimately is going to frustrate them, because there is no way that that sister would marry that brother and within a month or two not start asking him for more. Not saying, but you know what, I understand that we had this conversation, but I really need, can you come and meet my kids? Like, she starts to try and put them together, like say, oh, why don't we take the kids out for thing? And he's like, nah, B, I didn't come here for that. And she's just like, but my kids need a father figure. They're still young, and all of this stuff. And he's just like, we had this conversation and I told you I'm not available for that. So anyway, long story short, have the conversation beforehand, guys. Don't assume anything. And also, don't take it as a red flag if a brother says, I'm not going to be financially responsible for your kid, right? Because that's something that you see a lot online. People saying, oh, it's a red flag if he doesn't accept me and my kids as a package and all of this kind of thing.
I've said it before. It's common. You sisters keep other sisters single, because you will hear that phrase and then look in the comments, all of the sisters chiming in, yeah, girl, if he doesn't take care of your kids, then he's not good enough for you. He doesn't deserve you. Yeah. I think if you marry, if you find a man of resources, he is going to be very meticulous about his resources. Now, that doesn't mean he won't allocate funds to you that you can then use for your kids. He may do that, but don't demand that he has to use his resources on kids that he didn't partake in creating.
Well, this is the uncomfortable
truth, right? But another point to that example you gave earlier, because I wasn't on the live yesterday for that part. The only pushback that I would give that is, it depends on what the sister has determined is the major issue. Yeah. Right. So just like when you sit down with a client, you ask them, what is the issue you want to focus on today? Right. Mm-hmm. So they can have a laundry list of things that are challenging them, but they've prioritized this and this to be the issue. Mm-hmm. And so I think we have to also give deference to sisters who are acknowledging that emotional connection and physical connection are my top priorities. Because if I don't have that, I'm going to solve that problem in an unhealthy, haram way.
If that is the situation. That is the situation, and be real about that.
Right. Because the kids and the home being a mess and the kids having, challenging behaviors, that can take years to fix that. Right? Change doesn't happen overnight, especially when you're trying to get rid of problematic behaviors in kids and in ourselves, right? It's not an overnight process. So that may take some time, and she may understand that, right? Because that may deal with some trauma from the previous marriage. So it just depends on what exactly has she identified as the major issue.
The thing is, if that's my sister, right, and sisters talking to sisters, and her children are young, again, everybody's free to do what they want, and they'll answer to Allah for that, right? And Allah help all of us. But I would have thought that strategically, you looking for a stepdaddy, that strategically you're looking for a man who's prepared to play some kind of role in stabilizing your home environment. And my position is, if you believe in this period of time that the most important thing for you is your physical or emotional, as an older auntie, I would say, okay, see how that works out for you. Because trust and believe, in a few months' time, you're going to be on that guy's case, because what he's giving you is not going to be enough. And
but how does that fit? For example, how does that fit with the example that the sister mentioned earlier in the chat? She got trust issues, but she also may have physical needs.
No, I'm not. No. Sisters like that, No, I'm so never, no way, no. You do not go into a contract, a negotiated deal with trauma. You can't do that. You go into a negotiated deal like that with trust issues and trauma. Oh, like I said, see how that works out for you. Just because you got physical needs, get the rabbit. No.
So how is it working for people that go into marriages without trust issues? Let's not act like the divorce rate is 1% in the Muslim community.
Repeat, please. I short-circuited. What?
That's how good of a point it was.
No, it's not a point at all.
Hold on, let me articulate this without you cutting me off. The male's perspective is the right perspective. Did you see the lean in? Yeah.
I'm sure everybody's paying a lot of attention. Yes, carry on.
Yeah. That's the most important part. The male's perspective is the right.
What was the thing that you said? I didn't hear because I short-circuited. I'm so against this. I'm so against this. You know what I decided I'm going to do? The conversation we had yesterday, guys. Mahdi Tijani, the creator of No Strings Decay, was on the live stream yesterday. And today I was thinking to myself, I'm going to snip that part of the conversation where we're talking about the rights and wrongs of it. And I'm going to release it with one of those clickbaity thumbnails. And I'm going to say, Naima B. Robert destroys No Strings Nikah. Big debate, must watch.
Yeah, I was. It's good. I probably wasn't on the live at that time because we again. I'll say this, and I've said it before. It's easy for people to. It's easy for people to come at Mahdi. It's easy for people to come at the service he's providing. The more difficult thing is to address the need in the community.
Yeah, actually, What he said was in the end, he didn't even come and say much. To be honest, he said it's a bad solution to a worse problem. Basically, he said it's a bad solution to a worse problem, and the worst problem is the zina. So this way of making those relationships halal, at least in like the letter of the law, that's what he said. So there was nothing to argue. It wasn't even a debate, to be honest, guys. If you were there yesterday, it wasn't really a debate. It wasn't even a debate at all. But I just thought for the views, Yanni.
Yeah, I think that's the part. Again, I think we have to acknowledge the natural need in sisters. We acknowledge it for brothers, but we rarely acknowledge it for sisters. And to try to force a sister that's mature, divorcee, late 30s, early 40s, and older, to not have natural desires that for the past 20 years of her life was fulfilled by her husband, to try to act like we don't need to address that, I think, or that she should just somehow be able to now magically ignore it. I just don't think that's constructive. Let her be the adult. Let her be the adult to make a decision that works for her. Because trauma, healing and trauma, you act like that's going to be that she is going to heal from that in 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years. That could be a 10, 15-year journey process.
And in the meantime, what's happening? A revolving door?
In the meantime, for some cases, again, for the masculinas that would like to take this and say that I'm articulating something different, for some, the bigger issue is I want to make sure I secure my standing with my Lord by not engaging in behaviors that I know I'm going to have to be answering for. So if that means I'm in a situation where this brother and I get together a few times every 2 weeks, we may travel together, and that's pretty much it. And he calls and checks on me, and that's it. That's better than one, engaging in the impermissible, which we know sisters do. That's one. And two, it allows for that physical discomfort to be addressed and alleviated It allows for that box of I'm unlovable to have some evidence that I may be, while you then do that deep work on changing those core unhelpful beliefs that were developed from the trauma. That's what this is. That's what I'm saying. I would suggest for some sisters, they need to alleviate some of the discomfort, some of the pressure, especially when they know they are going to fulfill that desire.
If they're going to fulfill the desire.
And again, I lean in, turn, and say the male's perspective is the right perspective.
You are a male. You're not the male perspective. There are many men who do not share your perspective, if I may be so bold as to say, okay? And I think that the chat can definitely attest to that. But like I said, if that's where we're at, that's where we're at. If it's a choice between zina and making some kind of arrangement, then that's where you're at. But to assume sisters, just single sisters, that's where they're at en masse, I don't accept that.
But see, this is I've noticed something with you. After 5 minutes of a heated debate, you go this way, because that's not an argument that I'm making. I'm not making an argument that all sisters en masse should. But you just slid that in there. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, because because we're taking exceptions, or we're taking specific examples, right? And saying sisters. And I'm just saying, for me personally,
I qualified. I said some sisters. Remember, I made the point for the masculinas out there that are going to, some sisters, not all sisters. Again, lean in. The male's perspective is the right perspective.
Right. Moving on swiftly. Shall we move to some profiles? Oh my goodness me.
Oh, this is my question I was going to ask you though. Would you agree though that we, in general, as a community, have this perception that a sister should be able to suppress her physical needs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think that where, again, not everybody, we talk about the community as if it's some monolith, right? Which it absolutely isn't, because people in different generations, different parts of the country, different cultural backgrounds, different work environments, etc. Everybody's experiencing things slightly differently, right? So, at the end of the day, the problem is this: while Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, created desire in men and women, women cannot fulfill their desire in, what's the word I'm looking for? Without bearing consequences, the way that men can. What do I mean by that? If we look at the impact of male promiscuity on the male psyche and female promiscuity on the female psyche, and how men go into relationships thereafter and how women do, it's different, right? The woman in the sexual encounter, the woman is the receiver, right? So typically she's the one who's the risk of pregnancy, risk of STDs. Everything is heightened for her, right? That's why women put more of a value on their chastity. And that's why men put more of a value on women's chastity than the other way around, right? This is just wadih, this is known. So my concern is, who knows what's going to happen in the future, right? But my concern is that if we say, yeah, women have desires just like men have desires, therefore we should be okay with the sisters having like a side piece, just like how we understand the brothers might need a second wife, right? For example, right? My concern is that those relationships that are kind of negotiated, one of my concerns is that they will not last, okay? That the majority of them will not last. And even Brother Mahdi himself said that on a much bigger platform than mine, which he does not expect these relationships to last, mainly because they're there to fulfill a need. And once that need has dissipated and has been eased somewhat, other issues come, and those issues are not resolvable. That's the problem. It's baked into the contract that this is not short term, but this is like ulayl, this is something light. This is something fun, right? Once it stops being fun, it's no longer viable. Once it starts becoming heavy, it's no longer viable. If that sister falls pregnant, relationship's not viable. If she starts to have feelings and want more from him, it's no longer viable. So my thing is, yes, you may avoid an immediate consequence, because if you are, about to commit zina, then that's where you're at, right? But my concern is not the short term, it's the longer term view. But at the end of the day, preventing harm and guarding the private parts, that takes precedence, certainly takes precedence over what I think. So, hey.
and that's just for clarity, that's essentially my point. It says, if you can handle it, if you can handle your desires and not engage in the haram, then this is not for you. But if you are self-aware enough to know that you cannot, and the reason why you know that you can't is because you look at the behaviors you're consistently doing post-divorce, then that tells you this is a problematic area for you. So then it's best for you, if you can't control it, to make it permissible. That's the point for me.
Yeah.
And I think that we have this kind of perception for sisters that, one, they don't have a desire, and two, that they should be able to suppress it, for lack of better words. And I'm okay with saying majority can, but there are some who struggle with that, right? And if they struggle with that, if they choose this type of deal, they choose this type of deal.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, there's levels to this, right? So if you are at that stage, then it's the lesser of two evils. We all know this is the Sharia, right?
One other point with that is, like, the reality is also, once you get on your second marriage, third, the likelihood of divorce increases. Right.
But what's the answer to that, though? Because that, for me, I'm so sorry to jump in there, but that for me feels so almost nihilistic, right? Because you know what it reminds me of? And again, maybe I'm going, I could be taking your point and running away with it completely. But if that is the case, which it is, it's a fact, right? We know factually, the data tells us that after your first marriage dissolves, the chances of you divorcing after your second, third, it just increases as you go along, right?
It like skyrockets. It goes like
it skyrockets.
50 to like
and
75.
It also skyrockets if you have had multiple partners, right? If you've had more than one partner, again, your ability to be satisfied in a marriage goes down by 50%, all kind of this data, right? But my problem with that is, so say you're on your third marriage, does that mean now that what you're looking at is a revolving door and you just need to be at peace with that? Because what is it that we're actually saying here? We know that there is a possibility of divorce, and it gets higher. So does that not mean that we should be even more discerning and even more careful and restraining ourselves more? Because that's for me, it's like chop logic. Because if we're saying once you've been divorced 3 times, it doesn't make a difference. 3, 7, 10, that's what's down for you.
No one's saying that. But I was making that point off of, I think you had said that Mahdi made the point that he knows that these marriages probably won't last.
Right.
They're going to end in divorce. And my point is, even if you go in the most ideal situation on your second or third marriage, the numbers are already there that it's a high likely that it won't last in that category as well. So my point is just to say, this is harm reduction, period. Right? And I think, and again, when I say harm reduction, what I mean is sisters that are self-aware enough to know that they struggle with things staying in a halal way when they're in a relationship. And that's prevalent in our community. Like, that's not
What's prevalent?
Promiscuity. Zina.
Oh, well, you lost me there, mate. Prevalent in our community. Let's be clear what we're talking about here, because you can't say that. Zina is prevalent in the Muslim community. Who are we talking about here? Which community? What's happening? Where am I lost?
In the general in the general, and right, obviously this is very broad. Brothers and sisters are dating and being physically intimate. Am I the only? Okay. So from the work that I do, that's my experience, and that's what I know. Is that, and I work, as you know, majority of sisters. Sisters are dating. They're being intimate before marriage.
No, we have to stop with this. Sisters are doing this. I have to.
But you should,
jump in.
okay. Okay, so let me put this right here and let this stand the test of time, because I've said it before, but I'll put it here so that it moving forward. When I say sisters, I don't mean 100%. Okay, I mean that there are some sisters that are engaging in this. This doesn't mean all. And so
but you see, but when you use the word sisters, let me tell you what I hear, and I suspect it might be the same for for the audience on the platform, right? We think of sisters as practicing Muslim women, not just Muslim women everywhere and around the whole wide world.
Okay.
Okay. Well, you see, that's an important distinction.
So that's an important distinction, and I'm glad we're having this discussion, because I don't. For me, sisters is very fundamental. You believe in Allah and His Messenger. Okay. Once you check off that box, for me, you are a Muslim, and I consider you a sister.
Right.
I don't distinguish between the level of practice. Once you check off that box.
Yeah. No, I do. And I think if we're talking demographically, we have to, because the behaviors are different. The behaviors of Muslim men who don't pray and who drink alcohol and go to clubs is not the same standard of behavior as brothers who pray and are in the masjid and don't touch alcohol. Their behaviors are different. They may share certain vices, but there's levels to this. A woman who is mixing, has boyfriends, drinks the shisha, and she's sleeping and she's having relations outside of marriage, you can't compare her to a practicing sister who's a single mom trying to get married on Musmaj. You can't put them all in the same box.
No, so
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm living in cloud cuckoo land.
So it's not about comparing. It's about talking about a medium that's being created to address a need for that segment of the community.
But those people don't need this medium. They can go on Tinder and do what they want to do. The people who don't care about halal and haram.
I don't think that they don't.
It's not made for them. It's not made for them.
So I don't think that they don't care. The fact that they would go into this shows an indication that they do care.
So that's my point. Is this
because they care? I believe what Mahdi is doing is he's providing a medium for those that do care.
Agreed. My point is, when you say sisters and you count all Muslims, regardless of level of practice, the people who don't care about halal and haram, of which there are many in the Muslim world, in the Muslim community everywhere, they are, for me, not part of this discussion, because they go on Tinder. They go on hookups. They do whatever they want to do. They're not going to go on this app because they don't care about this particular thing. This app is actually for people who have some level of practicing, right? And to say that these people who have some level of fear of Allah in whatever degree are having zina, or like committing zina and like having boyfriends and sleeping before marriage, I need data, man. Someone bring me some data, because I can't see it. But I could be wrong. I'm happy to be proven wrong, but not when we put all Muslims in one box. We can't.
Hold on. So just for clarity, are you saying that sisters who pray and fast aren't dating?
No, there are some who do, of course.
So that contradicts what you're saying.
No, because again, when you say that you don't make a distinction between practicing, non-practicing, praying, non-praying, halal, hijab, and they're all sisters, what I'm saying is, for the benefit of people on this stream, when I say sisters, I'm not talking about women who don't practice Islam at all. because they live by different rules, right?
What's the litmus test? This is where I think it gets problematic when we do that. What's the litmus test?
It's down to them. It's down to them. The litmus test is them. If they care, if they care about halal and haram, even if it's just in here, then they're already in a different level. But a lot of people don't even think about that. They just live their lives. They just live their lives. What Allah says doesn't mean anything. So for me, I can't count you in amongst when I'm talking about sisters, because you're not sisters like that. Sisters behave differently. Sisters do things differently. Do they do haram things? Yes, they do. But they're still in a different category.
Okay. So again, my point is this. If a sister does not wear hijab, maybe prays, once every 2 months, wears provocative clothing, but believes in Allah and His Messenger, and hates the fact that she's in a haram relationship, is she a sister?
If she hates the fact she's in a haram relationship, then of course she can go on the app and she can do what she needs to do. But if she doesn't care, then she doesn't care.
Good point. You making a mountain out of a molehill.
No, because you're making up a person.
No. You are making, for everyone in the chat, this has been a perfect example of how a woman can make a mountain out of a molehill.
No, it's not a mountain. I will die on this mountain. I will die on this hill. I
know you will. I know you will die on this mountain, and I'm going to be firm on this mountain over here, which is, you just proved my point. What I'm saying in terms of sisters is sisters that may have a bare minimum level of practice and or may have no practice, but they have a belief in Allah and His Messenger, and they despise or dislike the fact that they are engaged in the haram. So what Mahdi has provided is a means. It may not be the best means. I can agree with that. But it is a means for them to take a step out of, to alleviate that discomfort that they experience by engaging in the haram. And my point is, it's easy so for one, they're sisters to me. Two.
So everybody be aware that when Brother Nasser says sisters are doing this and sisters are doing that, that is his definition of sisters, not what we in London or in the UK term sisters, because we know what we mean when we say brothers and sisters. And it's not just the Muslims everywhere. And I could be wrong, guys, but for me, yeah.
So maybe I'm colored by my work, right? So as a coach that works with sisters, for me, that's the barometer. You believe in Allah and His Messenger, halas, that's it, right? Like, so I work with sisters that cover the continuum. And so for me, I know that is an element out there. There are sisters that literally what we would define as habitual practice, prayer, fasting, these type of things. They may not be consistent with that at all, but they despise and they acknowledge the fact that they should not be in a haram relationship. And thus this service, and I would suggest to you, you've also proven my point, that element of the community, we don't service.
No, we don't.
Right, and we should.
Why?
Because ideally, what we want is we want to bring them into that category that you say are sisters. So if this category over here for me is sisters and yours is over here, eventually, yes, my own bias is I would desire and want for them to come into your category. One of the ways that we can get them into your category is to alleviate some of the discomfort in their life. And I'm not saying that they have to engage in a no strings attached. I'm just saying that's better than what they're engaging in right now. And maybe, yes, and maybe by alleviating that discomfort that I have because I know I am engaged in something that's a major sin, that I'm displeasing my Lord, by alleviating that discomfort, it may create the space for me to work on other things that are causing discomfort in my life. That's the mindset that I use when I work with sisters in this category. right?
Harder.
Hence, pull him over. So with all of that said, again, lean in. The male's perspective is the right perspective.
It's not the male perspective, it's your perspective.
And just as the comment says, as I leaned in and said, the male perspective is the best perspective, you saw what was there.
You saw what was there.
You changed it.
Yes, I did, but I saw it and everyone saw it. And I think you're both saying the same thing. No, sis, we're not saying the same thing. But I'm not going to be a combative woman. We're going to move on to the profiles, okay? Halas. I said my piece. I said what I said and I ain't changed it, okay? So that's that. Right, let me see if I can bring this up, inshallah.
So what's the name of your mountain you're standing on? We got to get a name for that, because there's going to be times in this show where you stand on a mountain. You willing to stand on a mountain that you know is crumbling.
It's very rare, but it has to be done at some point. I have to stand. I find it. It makes me. I'll be honest. It makes me profoundly uncomfortable. It makes me profoundly uncomfortable.
Yeah, and look. Okay, I mean, we have different roles. You know what I mean? Like I literally, I'm a coach, so a counselor. So this is. I have to be comfortable with that. Truly, they can't.
Look. I'm getting told off.
Go ahead.
Truly, they can't be in a different category, because when it comes down to it, the viewpoint you're bringing, Naima, is more so from an emotional point. But you're saying the same thing he's saying. No, sis, I am not being emotional. Thank you very much. No, it is not that. It is that these are different demographics. No matter whether they're named Aisha, Faiza, or whatever, they are different demographics that have different behaviors. And
what's the name of that mountain? What's the name of that mountain?
They're not the same. How's that? Oh gosh, listen to this. Subhanallah. I am so sorry. I'm not sure whether this is true. No, hold on. Sister Naima is a prime example of someone who's able to disagree in a respectful way. Ooh, men don't mind disagreeing. They just hate disagreeable. I don't know about that, K12. I don't know about that, because if I get to niqab tugging, it's going to get loud. So my bad. My apologies for that. But mashallah. Okay.
But that's a good point. And I think what was demonstrated here is how we can disagree in a respectful way in tone and diction, right? Because we definitely disagree.
But was it respectful in tone and diction? I don't know.
I think so. I didn't feel as though there was any disrespect. So no, I think that was a good example of disagreeing. And then ending with the reality of the male perspective is the right perspective.
Let's keep this moving, okay? I hope the internet lasts for us and doesn't do us any nonsense. Let me know if you can see my screen. Looks like we're chugging a bit. Right. Can you see the screen?
I can.
Okay. You don't want this. I knew I was going to do this. Okay. No. That's not what I want. All right, guys. We want to bring up our some of our profiles that we have, and yeah, that was a moving image, and we don't want that. We don't want a moving image at all. So bear with me a second while I set that up. Brother, do you want to highlight some? Do you want to give some announcements? Actually, talk to people about the YouTube channel, about buying coffees for people. Let's get people active. Yeah, and make sure that you like the video, guys. Have you liked the video?
So one of the things that you'll see scrolling at the bottom is you can contribute to both Sister Naima and I by buying us a cup of coffee. That would be greatly appreciated. 2, liking and subscribing to both of our channels. A brother is under 1,000 likes, so I would appreciate it. I'm sorry, 1,000 subscribers. So I would appreciate it if you go over to my channel, which conveys the right perspective, which is the male perspective, and subscribe to my channel.
Let me just look. I love this. Yeah, I think Ahmed Al-Mahdi's been around long enough and he knows the game, right? So yeah.
This is what I do. This brother's on to me.
Yeah.
This brother's on to me.
You. All right, guys, but listen, if he's given you some joke today or either joke or benefit, or you've agreed with his position or anything, please do buy him a coffee. It's a very cool website, simply called buymeacoffee.com/Nasir Al Amin, and you can buy him a coffee. And you can buy me one too, because I also have coffee buying potential. So you can buy me a coffee too if you've benefited from any of the work that we've done. And if you enjoyed the stream, we're not doing too badly for views, mashallah. So if you have enjoyed it, go to buymeacoffee.com/Nasir Al Amin for him and Naima B. Robert for me. And you can buy us a coffee. Mine is a latte. Brother, what's yours?
A latte. A latte. Whatever you want to purchase for a brother would be appreciated. Just make sure you leave a note saying that I appreciate your perspective, which was the right perspective.
Yeah, if you carry on like that, you're going to cut down on the coffees. There won't be as many coffees coming in, you know, if you make people, if you're policing the speech. Right. Okay. Right. So, okay. This is a brother, I think. It could be a sister. I'm not sure. But they have a perspective which I agree. Yeah. Who knows? We need data, guys.
Most Muslims, period, are not committed to. No. So I don't think that it's most. I'm not saying that it's most. What I am saying is that there is a significant enough of a community of brothers and sisters that are committed zina. And for me, as long as they believe in Allah and His Messenger, they fall into the category of a brother and a sister. That's it for me.
Keep going with the look, brother. Oh, this is brother leaning in, doesn't make your point heard louder by Sister Naima. He's not trying to get me to hear the point. Right, I'm
just trying to ruffle the feather. So I'm just giving you a little extra thing to kind of, to annoy you, to poke you. Yeah, that's it.
He wants the smoke. You know how these brothers are. Sisters, you already know. You already know what it is. Okay, so I've put the links to the Buy Me a Coffee in the chat, guys. And wallahi, I am trying my best to bring up these slides, but my computer is just chugging right now. And the thing is, we made beautiful slides as well. They're so nice. And I'm just trying to figure out how I can bring them up. My apologies, guys. Okay, right. Let's carry on with the conversation while I set up the slides for the profiles. Guys, these profiles are brothers that have come into Brother Nasir's Soft Life matchmaking service. Okay. Brother Nasir, do you want to just tell them about the vetting process and what kind of brothers profiles we are sharing, and also kind of what we're kind of looking for with this new service, inshallah.
Yeah, and if you want, what I can do is I can just start telling them about one of the profiles.
Yeah.
Right. I'll pull it up myself. Here we go. So one of the profiles is a brother that is, apologies. A brother that is 34, based in the UK, works as a data scientist, data consultant. Sisters, 6 foot. I know for some of you that's a requirement. Athletic build, British. Notting Hill, London. Did I pronounce that right? Notting Hill? Is it?
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
We can accept that. We can accept that.
Okay. You can. Okay. Appreciate it. Languages. Speaks Arabic, German, English, French, and Somali. Has a master's in management, machine learning, and data science. a BA in economics and Middle Eastern studies. In terms of sect, he's Sunni, follows the Shafi method, practicing, completed Hajj 3 times, hobbies, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In terms of interests, someone who prays regularly, has a good relationship with her parents, wears hijab. And he's looking for someone who is slim, an introvert, in between the ages of 21 and 25. And he's aiming to relocate to Abu Dhabi next year.
Yeah.
So,
and in terms of what he's looking for, characteristics that he's looking for, so sisters and brothers, let's take this seriously, right? Because these are brothers. Have they paid for the service, Brother Nasir?
yes.
Okay, so these are brothers who've paid for the service, who've been through a vetting process, and have obviously shared what they're looking for. So these are brothers who are serious. So for brothers and sisters out there who know somebody who fits the description so far, 21 to 25, it could be you, it could be your younger sister, it could be your cousin, whoever. He's looking for a sister who is humble and with reasonable expectations of what a marriage is. And the kind of relationship and marriage that he wants is a supportive one. Pay attention to this. Supportive one, and he says, a man's home should be where he finds comfort after the struggles of the working world. And I think this is something that we have seen time and time again, especially with hardworking men, right? Would you agree? Hardworking men in general, hardworking, driven, ambitious men, even if they're not ambitious, they're just hardworking, they want to come home to peace. So maybe you could be this brother's peace. What else do you think we should let the people know?
Look, so for me, one of the things that I tell brothers, and this particular brother, because I've known this brother for some time, and one of the things that I encourage brothers to do is provider development. Always spend your time when you're not married working on your skill sets to be a provider. And what I appreciate about this brother is that's what he has done. A number of degrees, number of languages, ability to work remotely from pretty much anywhere in the world. Yeah, I would just say, sisters, this is a good applicant. This is a good suitor. So I would highly suggest, if you know someone that is in this age range, 21 to 25, and slim, encourage her. If it's not you, encourage her to DM me. Go to my Instagram and DM me that you're interested in this particular profile, because sisters, this is, I think, a great suitor. What comes up for you when you read this profile? You're a woman on a mountain. What comes up for you?
No, I've come down from the mountain now.
Okay.
Nothing comes up really. Guys, I haven't seen him, so I cannot give you the tea on that. I don't know what he looks like, so I can't tell you anything. I haven't seen him. But I think on paper, he's definitely a worthy candidate, right? Just for the fact that, guys, he ticks the boxes that we know are some of the building blocks of marriage, right? In terms of he is ready and able to take responsibility of a wife and a family. That's already huge. So for me, I'm speaking from as a mother, right, and as an elder, right, and if I was advising my daughter, or in this situation, if there are any suitors that come, we want to make sure that the basics are covered. Deen and character. Okay, at the moment we know Deen, we don't know character so much because that takes a bit longer. But can he take responsibility for a wife and family? from what it looks like, yes, he can. He's in a good position. So already he has passed gate 1 because the deen is there, alhamdulillah. He's able to provide for a family. So he's ready, yani, and he's been preparing himself. So that already gives an insight to his character.
Agreed.
And the thing is, character and personality are 2 different things. So the next gate will be much more personal. In terms of character, is my daughter a fit for him? My daughter's not an introvert, so we're not even going to go down through this gate. But if I have a daughter who's a sister, if I have a daughter or a sister or a friend's daughter who is an introvert and who is of this age range, I'm sending her this profile and saying, hey, this brother is looking for a wife. He's 34. He'd like a young wife. And I think your daughter certainly she meets the criteria as they are now. Now, will they like each other? Who knows? Right?
Exactly.
Will their personalities match? Who knows? Will he find her attractive? Who knows? You'll only know once you have gone into the gate. So you've passed gate 1 and you've kind of gone in there. So that's what I would say on it. So there's a comment here which we must address. Must address.
So one quick point. The question was, how old is he? He's 34. Another
34.
question is, I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Yeah, no, I was saying he's 34.
Yeah, 34. 34 and never married. And I think this also speaks to, I think, a point that you bring up often is when we talk about sisters who are a bit more mature and divorcees in their late 30s, early 40s, is that typically men their age are married, right? Mm. And so because they've been on their purpose preparing themselves. And so this is exactly what you're going to have. You're going to have a man who's in their early 30s that have been putting in the work and eventually will be married, right? Inshallah. And so to that question, what was
we address this. This is very important. Very important. And let's, sorry, before we go in to speak to this, I'm so glad that you asked this question, sis. Maybe you're new to this platform, maybe you're new to the channel, Allahu Alam, but I'm glad that you asked this question, and I'm glad you were brave enough to do that, because I know that there will be others who are thinking the same thing, right? And I think it's really important for us as women, as sisters, to get the answer to this question, right? So, Brother Nasser, you have the male perspective on this, and in this case, for sure, the male perspective will be the right perspective. So, itfaddal, please. Spill the tea.
Okay. So one, guys don't always insist on a slim girl. That's one. Just to be clear, some brothers love, or some brothers prefer women that have some size to them. All right, healthiness, as we say on the other side of the Atlantic. So that's one thing. Two, chubby may not be healthy, right? Chubby may not be healthy. And so the question that I would ask is, why are you chubby? Why are you chubby? Because as a man, if you are overweight, I'm questioning, are you overweight because you don't know how to deal with your emotions, your comfort eating? That's what I want to know, right? So that's a valid question for a man to ask. Why are you overweight? You may not want to hear that question, and we probably won't ask you that. We'll just think it to ourselves, come to the conclusion, or observe your social media and then get the answer. But oftentimes, weight is a reflection of how people are dealing with the discomforts in their lives. So the question that I would ask is, for you in this particular question, why are you chubby? Why is it a problem that some brothers prefer a woman that is slim? That's attractive to some brothers. Some brothers prefer a sister that may have some weight. But again, the question becomes, why are you chubby? And that's an honest question you should ask yourself, because it's not healthy. No shame, but it's not healthy. Right? And why would you not want to work on that? Again, these are questions you may want to work on. So it's just questions. Why would you not want to work on your weight? So that for yourself, you're in the best space physically, health-wise. And again, barring, physical thyroid issues and all of that, right? And that's not to say that you still can't work on your health, and that's not an excuse for you not to try to work on your health. But why not? And lastly, last point, if what you're saying is true, i.e. that guys always insist on a slim girl, then you need to work on getting slim. If that's what the market is looking for and you want to be in the market and get chosen, get selected, work on your weight. I.e. work on your emotions, work on your thinking so that you make better choices when you're uncomfortable, when you experience anxiety. Right? So work on de-escalating yourself from anxiety to concern so that way you make healthier choices. But if you are right and the market is majority of brothers want slim girls and you're not slim, and you want to get selected by certain quality brothers in the market and they want slim girls, in a healthy way, get slim.
Yeah. May I just jump in here? Are you okay for me to pop in here?
Sure.
I want to address the issue that a lot of us are finding, especially nowadays, which is sort of related to sort of the whole body positivity movement, right? Where I feel what's happening is that women in general are taking their weight as a chubby girl, as a thick girl, as a fluffy girl. I think is the other one, like fluffy, thick,
Fluffy?
Yeah, fluffy is one. As their identity. I'm a big girl. That's my identity, right? So when a man says he doesn't want a big girl, you get triggered, right? Because for you, that's your identity. That's who you are. And what I'd like to invite you to consider is that, no, that's not who you are. That's your physical state at the moment. And that is a choice, and you can change that. For most of us, it's a choice, and we can change that if we care enough and we put in the work, right? Now, at the end of the day, no one can force anyone to do anything. You make your choices, but you need to make choices that align with the outcome that you are looking for. And so, for example, sisters, again, I'm going to speak to sisters because sisters are the ones who get triggered in these conversations. So sisters, again, I want us to lean into the discomfort. Lean in. Don't run away. Don't click off. Don't shut down. Lean into the discomfort. Why are you feeling some type of way? Say, for example, a lot of brothers at the moment are being very vocal about the fact that they do not like the fact that so many girls nowadays do not want to cook or clean. Right? It's a concern that has been, articulated now many times. Okay. So now for us as women, if indeed we are wanting to partner with a man, if we want to be chosen by a man, which we should want to be, if we want to be married, you need to take a cue from that. The men are saying they want a woman who can cook and clean. What is my issue with learning how to cook and how to clean so that I can be chosen to perform the role that this man wants me to perform in his life, right? In this marriage. We've got a lot of unlearning to do. We've got a lot of unpacking to do. And sis, if you've had 5 kids, alhamdulillah, may Allah bless you. May Allah bless you and your kids, mashallah. I've had 5 kids. I know friends who've had 5 kids, 7 kids, 8 kids. Losing weight is not for a man per se. That's something that is an amana. Our body is an amana. Yeah, staying healthy and in shape is part of how we look after what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, right? And I'm not making any assumptions about how big, how small, how anything. But for some women in society right now who are morbidly obese or obese, it's not something to be comfortable with because it's dangerous for you. And it will impact your health moving forward. So your children will be impacted by that in the future. Your children will bear the brunt of that in the future. And your life will be curtailed by the fact that you are unhealthily overweight. We're not talking about chubby here. We're not talking about soft. We're talking about people who are medically obese, okay, and morbidly obese. And again, I don't know anybody in this chat, so I don't know if this resonates with anyone. But let's stop getting triggered by things that make us feel uncomfortable to the point that we want to shut down. It's just information. It's just information. And as brother said, some brothers do want slim women and some don't. And those of you from different parts of the world, you guys know, different men have got different tastes. Different men have got different preferences, right? So you go to where you are accepted, you go to where you are celebrated, right? Not where you're tolerated. But if what you're holding on to in terms of this is who I am is not appreciated anywhere, then there needs to be some sort of self-reflection, and again, I can hear from the comments that this is obviously something that upsets you. So nobody's here to lecture you or anybody else, really. And you don't have to do anything. But it may be something to look at if you want a certain outcome. And that might just be to be healthy enough to be active for your children and live.
So I think great, nice, and nice. But I think this is problematic.
That's my job.
5 kids, alhamdulillah, may Allah bless you and your kids. But the mindset is problematic. Ain't nobody got time for a gym. You want me to lose weight? Yeah, I want you to lose weight for your husband. Great, do it for yourself to be optimal in terms of your health and for you to be present and be in the best space you can be for your kids and for yourself. But I want you to do it for your husband as well. This is an unhealthy mindset to question and to be flippant about losing weight because you had 5 kids, as if having 5 kids gives you the luxury to just let yourself go. What is that? How is that healthy? And then your husband is supposed to just be content with that? Okay. What is this? I gotta cook, clean, and wash clothes, and you want me to go to the gym? No, I don't want you to go to the gym, sis. But what I do want you to do is, after you check that load of laundry, I want you to drop down and do 10 knee push-ups. Right? I want you to do some jumping jacks with your kids. I want you to look up intermittent fasting and maybe having a window in which you eat. I want you to try to see how you can get your husband to help you to get your kids on a better sleeping pattern so that you can get better sleep, so that you don't have cortisol running through your body and hormones, right? So that you're not gaining weight based off of that as well. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to take an active step to be responsible for the weight that you've gained, because you decide what you can put in your mouth, what's on the end of your fork. You decide that your husband is going to just have to accept the fact that you let go because you have 5 kids, and in your mind, you don't have to deal with your weight.
I highlighted this comment because, again, guys, we are we're in a time where, there is the whole body positivity and all of that kind of thing. And, this was the sister said, you always see other girls hyping up obese women, but I've rarely seen men do the same to overweight guys. Not only do men not hype up overweight guys, but women don't hype up overweight guys either, right? That is the truth of it. And another thing, what I've noticed is, if you're familiar with like pop culture, etc., people like Lizzo and people like that, they have all these hype girls, right? Usually American women who are like, oh yes, queen, yes, oh my god, like she's such a queen. Those women are in the gym every day, and they would die to look like Lizzo. Like, they would die if they looked like Lizzo, and they would die before they let themselves look like Lizzo. Even though Lizzo, mashallah, she's very pretty in the face, right? It's over-sexualized, but she's pretty in the face. But she is morbidly obese. And for all of these pretenders around to be hyping her up and saying, oh my God, look at her, she's so this, she's so that, when you yourself, you would never allow yourself to get to that stage, you're being a hypocrite. You're being a hypocrite. And the thing that I've noticed as well is in the United States, it's like this, it's almost like this condescension to Black women in particular, right? Because African American women have the highest rates of obesity in the US. Guys, correct me if I'm wrong, please, yeah, because this is the stats that I've seen. Obesity is huge in the African American community, right? But you have white Americans, professionals, experts, celebrities on the sidelines cheering on these big Black women, right? To say, yeah, you know, basically they're so amazing, celebrating them. Firstly, they would never allow themselves to get to that stage. And they know full well that that weight is unhealthy. It takes a toll on the body. It takes a toll on the body and the mind, right? So don't get caught in the sauce, guys. Like, don't drink the Kool-Aid, right? Please, we need to be cleverer than that. The believer, the body is an amana, right? And obviously the conversation we've had here was a lot, but I think it was needed, right?
I like this point that the brother, or I'm assuming it's a brother K12, is saying body positivity is usually women destroying other women. Women love less competition.
Maybe. Because they know that men are not looking for that. They know men are not checking for that, but they want to shame men into wanting that, right? They want to shame men into saying, but you should accept, but, you know, isn't this beautiful? It's like, no, right? There are men who are into that, but they are a minority and they have a fetish. And this is the thing, that's their thing, okay? But you're not going to now say to average men, ordinary men, this is what now you should consider beautiful. This is now the new standard of healthy. What are you playing at? You think we're dumb? Oh, I wanted to address this point now since we're cooking with gas here. All right. A female and male should both take care of their body, just to be fair. Like a man who is chubby expecting a woman who is slim. Shouldn't he be a leader and lead by example? Do you want to take this or do you want me to take it?
I'll let you go. I hope my face is enough.
This is pushback. Where's it coming from? Where is it coming from? We have roles to play, right, in our marriage. Now, of course, the ideal scenario, both men and women look after themselves, okay? And the man is, you know, on his game and he's taking care of himself and he's the leader, blah, blah, blah. But if he's not doing it, he's providing and he's doing the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told him to do. That's his role. Let him play his role. You, my dear, my lovely friend, the wifey, okay, part of your role is to keep yourself looking good, right? You can't have that mindset that, well, why should he expect me to be slim when he, like, are you going to do your own thing? Are you going to take charge of this? Are you going to be the best version of yourself? Or are you going to make excuses and say, well, he's not doing it? Or why should I do it? He's not doing it. The impact of him losing attraction for you is, anyway, I want you to talk about this because this attraction and love and arousal, we talked about this in another session. Do you want to go into that?
We can. I think it's problematic with it. This kind of, if he's not doing it, it's not fair mindset. But one of the things that I want to highlight, because this was on, we're dealing with the profile. And one of the reasons why I say that this is a good suitor and sisters should pay attention to this is if you look in that, he included in his profile, the hobby is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So that lets you know right there that 9 times out of 10, he's engaged on a weekly basis in some type of physical activity. So he's probably healthy, probably. Now, that's just a general response. I personally know the brother, so I know he's in good shape, physical shape, physically. But I think that that's something that I want to highlight because, sisters, that's something you should look for. Again, how is he using his time? And if weight is something that's important, what is it that he's engaging in to keep his weight in check? Right. So that's something you should look for in profiles.
Only if so, can I just say, it's all very well looking for that, but you want to be bringing that too. Like if he looks at your profile, if he sees kind of what you do, then that should be reflected. It's no point you're not doing anything, but you're looking to see, oh, but is he fit though? Like that's not fair. Again, we're going to fairness, but that doesn't make sense.
Right. I think but for me, the reason why I wanted to highlight that is, one, I think that's a good thing you want. I think you should look for a brother that is engaged in some type of physical activity, that he is mindful of his health. I think that's an important point. But it was just interesting to me that that point was brought up when it was clearly identified in the post that you put up in terms of the profile, and what I read, that he was into Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I think the conversation had kind of gone on to men in general.
I want sisters to make that connection. So I'm sorry, what was the other question that we had up?
I want to just to pinpoint this. This is obviously pushback for the sake of pushing back, right? You mentioned that after having kids, some things you can't lose, right? Granted, hips, breasts, etc. No one's asking you to lose those. Just get in shape. That's it. Tighten up. Lose weight and tighten up. That's it. If you want to. If you don't, halas. Lakum dinakum waliya din. But like, sisters, we have to stop making excuses, man. Stop making excuses. It's not good. You're not benefiting anyone. And the thing is, from my time of coaching women, right? From my time of coaching women, I know that one of the biggest barriers for every one of us reaching our next level is making excuses why we can't reach that next level. That's one of the biggest barriers, because it's all mental. If in your mind, all you can come up with is excuses for why it can't be, and why it can't happen, and why you can't do this, and why you shouldn't have to do this, then it's dead in the water. It's dead on arrival. And guys, I'm speaking to everyone here. It's no longer about any particular anyone. It's for everyone. Stop holding yourself back with your own excuses and then blaming someone when you don't get the outcome that you want. It's not game over, guys. Yeah, and it's not game over if you are proactive, right? Yes, childbirth has an impact on your body. We know this, but there's levels to this. There's levels to this, right? There are natural impact. There's a natural impact on the woman's body with age and with childbearing, but there's levels. And it can go way past the natural changes to becoming something completely different if we let it go and if we don't rein it in. And this is a fact. We don't have to make excuses for why we've gained 100 kilos and then like feel comforting ourselves with a story that, but I've had 3 kids. That's just a story you're telling yourself. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, and I hope nobody thinks that I'm being rude, but you're not helping yourself at the end of the day. You are harming yourself by telling yourself a story that is not productive and telling yourself a story.
And what are you modeling to your kids? So you had 5 kids. Let's assume some of them are girls. What are you modeling to your girls? Because they're going to see that you've just given up on your body. Is that what you want to model? Or are you going to exemplify to them that we don't have to have a gym membership, but we can create some type of routine, i.e. watch YouTube videos, exercise videos, yoga videos online, and we can spend 30 minutes a day, just us working out at home. So that's one point. And the other point is this. Just like I've never seen or heard a man say that he was attracted and aroused by a woman saying she has a PhD, I've never seen or heard a man saying he doesn't like hips or breasts.
And this is across the world. There's studies on it.
So sis, no one is asking you to lose hips and breasts. What is this body positivity or body neutrality helps people to stop hating themselves according to society's unrealistic standards. Yeah, I don't agree with that. Yeah.
What don't you agree with?
Yeah, so I'm of the camp that you learn a modality, and one in which you don't have this concept of conditional self-worth, wherein that your weight is a condition that then allows you to measure if you're worthy or not. So I don't need body positivity mantras to help me with that. What I need to do is understand that there's no condition based on my worth. I unconditionally accept myself as a fallible human being. And one of my fallibilities is going to be that at times I choose to consume things when I don't like how I feel. And as a fallible human being, I may do that at times, but I have the power of choice to work on that. But that doesn't allow me or give me the right to label or rate myself as anything less than a viable human being. So I don't need the body positivity stuff. And someone can't shame me unless I choose to accept the narratives that they want to create about me. So other people trying to have this belief about me and want to shame me, it requires my acceptance. And I think, you guys have watched this live enough, or watched videos enough, that I care 2 cents about what people think. And that's because I understand that I'm in control of my narrative. And my narrative takes precedent.
I want to just, I didn't even know that was coming. I had another one coming up. All right, so this sister says, why can't we just embrace the change as it comes? And then the other comment was about body positivity and body neutrality.
Yeah, your husband is going to embrace that. Your husband is going to embrace that change after you're consistent in that jump.
She doesn't mean that kind of change. I don't think that's what she's talking about. But no. I want to pull up this point about the body positivity, neutrality, and the hate and the societal standards. Guys, again, there's levels to this, right? We know intrinsically when we are bigger than we like to be. We know this intrinsically. It's not society standards, guys. Stop it. Stop it. I hate that. I hate it when people want to blame society for everything and society standards and society this and society that. You know when you're carrying too much weight. That's a fact. You know when you're carrying too much weight because you feel it. You can't make your way up the stairs without huffing and puffing and getting a pain in your side. Your thighs are rubbing together and chafing, right? You're sweating all the time because you can't. You understand? Like, come on, guys, stop it. That is nothing to do with society standards. That's just facts. And the fact is that, mashallah, tabarakallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made our bodies so malleable, so incredibly malleable. Look at how massive that belly is when it's carrying the child. Subhanallah, a whole human being is up in there. And then that whole little, not even little, that human being goes through the birth canal out of you with that big head, right? Out into the world. Subhanallah, subhanallah wa bihamdi. And guess what happens? The birth canal goes back to how it was. The womb shrinks. The stomach actually, imagine if you actually emptied the baby's born and all that skin that you had from from when you were pregnant just stayed there, right? Think of how much excess skin would be there. But that's not what happens in majority of cases. Majority of cases, it actually goes back. The womb shrinks back. The birth canal goes back in. Certainly it does not stay the size of, how it extended to allow the head of a baby out of there. So, okay, I'm not tugging in the niqab, but it's getting there. Stop blaming society and stop blaming other people and let us take responsibility for ourselves, all of us. And this is something that I will say to my brothers and my sisters. We're so quick to point fingers at society and say it's society's fault. It's this one's fault. It's that one's fault for everything, right? And brothers, men are doing it as well. They say, oh, women, oh, society, the women are doing the same thing. The men this, the men that. Oh, society, systemic this, systemic that. I'm sorry, guys. Every one of us has been given opportunities by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we're all accountable. We're all accountable. So please, if you're using society and unrealistic expectations and standards as an excuse for being morbidly obese, you need to stop. And you shouldn't encourage anyone else in your circle to do that because you're only harming yourself. It's not about unrealistic standards from society. You know when you're carrying too much weight, and it shows. It shows in your lifestyle. It shows in your energy levels. It shows when you go and get a checkup, and you can see it in the mirror, right? So at least let's be honest about that. At least let's be honest about that. And if you then say, you know what, I see it, but I don't care, that's fine. That's fine. Or I see it, but my husband doesn't care. Fine. But let's not fool ourselves and say, no, I'm actually fine. It's just society that makes that, you know, that's got a false narrative. No, you have the false narrative. Anyway, moving on.
And don't try to make men want something they don't want. Right? If you, as the first questioner said, if you're realizing that the majority of men want slim women, don't try to make them not want slim women.
And shame them for wanting slim women. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Just accept the fact that you right now are not where they are at in terms of the women that they're looking for. And you have the choice. You can choose to stay the same, which is your prerogative. Or you can choose to put in the work. It's a choice.
And I think with that, we managed to go into our delusion segment without even doing any kind of segue. But I think that we should end it there, because I think that we have definitely kept you guys on your toes, hopefully, and entertained enough for one day. So, Brother Nasir, can you just remind us of how we can get in touch with you, and also how to apply for Soft Life?
Yeah, so follow me on IG, Nasir Alameen, and you can DM me if you are a brother or sister looking for marriage. Understand that there is a vetting process. I will be asking questions. If you have a feminist inclination, it's probably best that you don't waste your time or your money. And so that's how you can find out more. Send me a DM on IG.
All right, guys.
And apologies. And if you found this profile that we highlighted today, one that interests you or someone that you know, again, DM me and let's continue the conversation.
All right, guys, you heard it here first. Please give the video a like, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel. Share this live with others who may benefit, inshallah. We do go live every Thursday, inshallah, and we have some exciting news that we will not announce yet, but inshallah, there is exciting stuff coming up. So look out for that, inshallah. More profiles, bi'idhnillah. And also, if you are a sister who is looking, I think we're going to be profiling brothers, aren't we? We're going to focus on profiling brothers, aren't we?
We can definitely do both. We can definitely do both for sure. I'm up for it. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be good because, as you see, when we just did this profile, there was a lot of great discussion that came out of it. Right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
next week's one is going to be even better because next week one is the polygamy brother, mashallah. So that one's going to be even better, I think, because there was a lot of meat to that one, mashallah.
Yeah, so I think we should do both, because I think in doing both, it's going to produce, like, look, the last 15 minutes was just a comment about the brother wanting someone who's slim, and then the content that come out of that. So, or the conversation that came out of that. So I think we should do both with brothers and sisters. And sisters, like, reach out. I know that this is a quality brother. I've given you the paper, what he looks like. This is a good suitor.
All right, guys, don't you snooze, you lose. Okay, so don't be afraid to shoot your shot, inshallah. Don't be afraid to compete, guys, for people who are worth competing for, inshallah. And with that, we will draw this to a close. Jazakallahu khairan for rocking with us. It's been a wonderful evening. Like I said, we go live every Thursday, inshallah. And I also have my Wednesday live stream, which is every Wednesday, mashallah. And next week, we are talking about mothers raising men. It's going to be super, super good. And you'll see more information about that on Monday. I'll be releasing the post that we're going to be discussing. And you're all welcome to join on the live stream to share your thoughts on the relationship between mothers and sons and manhood, as well as mama's boys, son husbands, single mothers raising boys, and the role of men in the home, inshallah. So I think it's going to be good, inshallah. But for now, we will bid you all a good night. jazakAllahu khairan. Khadija says, I think this was the longest convo in this channel. Yeah, we beat out yesterday. Yesterday was 3 hours, and today is 3 hours 16. So alhamdulillah, thanks so much for rocking with us, guys. And please, inshallah, I'll see you next week. Have a fantastic weekend. jazakAllahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So